علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجن من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يسأله من في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شأن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يرسل عليكما شواظ من نار ونحاس فلا تنتصران فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فإذا انشقت السماء فكانت وردة كالدهان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيومئذ لا يسأل عن ذنبه إنس ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يعرف المجرمون بسيماهم فيؤخذ بالنواصي والأقدام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون يطوفون بينها وبين حميم آن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ولمن خاف مقام ربه جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ذواتا أفنان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان تجريان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما من كل فاكهة زوجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق وجنى الجنتين دان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن قاصرات الطرف لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كأنهن الياقوت والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ومن دونهما جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مدهامتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان نضاختان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما فاكهة ونخل ورمان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن خيرات حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان حور مقصورات في الخيام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على رفرف خضر وعبقري حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان تبارك اسم ربك ذي الجلال والإكرام.
Well, good afternoon to each and every one of you and all over the place. Furthermost, glad that you made it on time. Coach is having trouble getting in. I don't know. She said his link is giving him some trouble, but I've resent the link to him. And Nyang Njie is also saying he has some trouble, so I'm not sure what's going on with the link, but I've resent it to Coach, so hopefully he will be able to, get in right away. But furthermore, I'm sure the listeners understand why we're starting with the Quranic recitation today, because somebody you know, for every country, we have individuals, we have human beings who always answer the call to action. Um, Honorable Lamin Dambudiba happens to be one of those individuals. And I think, and I've mentioned this before, Gambian history would, I mean, it's not going to be ever be written without dedicating a chapter to the gallantry of this man who has given so much to the country, who has sacrificed so much for his country, who has done so much for his people. You know, there was once upon a time that, as you know, Father Mo, the struggle wasn't, it wasn't fashionable. Right?
No, it was not.
Risk associated. It was messy situation. I mean, it was much, much easier to just walk away and go and do your own thing, take care of your family, and pretend everything is hunky-dory. But there were men and women who decided, you know, I will never, ever even contemplate such an action. And they took it upon themselves to step up and fight for nation. Lamin Dambudiba happens to be one of those folks. I remember that fateful day when Honorable Dabo and you know, Kemeseng and Honorable Kemeseng and all these guys literally took, risked their lives facing bullets of the Jammeh thugs back in the day. Lamin Dambudiba was literally a giant in his own right there in the midst of it all. I mean, on that day, he decided, you know, I'm going to lose my life today, but I will not stand by and watch this gross injustice go unanswered. And I think that we need to always remember that we have our own Mandelas. We have our own men and women who fought, who sacrificed, who gave their lives for that country. I would not, I mean, you know, I'll be even, would not, it would not be far-fetched to say that Lamin Dambudiba's death is due to the suffering that he faced in Mile 2 back in the day. I mean, because some of these people, Femi Peters, I can go through all the names. These people died because of what happened to them in Mile 2. This is what really happened. So it means they are martyrs. They died for their nation, for their people. They sacrificed it all. And may Allah grant all of them Jannah. And may He ease the pain of this very, very difficult period on the families. And obviously, our condolences go out to the UDP, which he was a big part of. He was a giant in that. And our condolences go out to the whole entire Gambia because he died for country. Fadamos, Haram, while you come in, let me try Coach because he's trying to call me and probably he's still having trouble coming in.
Yeah. Banka, I basically share the same sentiment. This was yesterday when actually I got a call from Pasamba. I was actually sleeping and he told me that Lamin Dambudiba actually passed away. And I went to Facebook and I saw the obituary from different individuals. Like you, there's absolutely no doubt that this struggle of fighting to bring an end to tyranny was not very fashionable. Personally, I don't know the man. So all we can go with is his public persona. And from his public persona, that's how we actually know who this person is. Like you said, struggle in South Africa. Most of the time, people talk about the Mandelas. But there were a lot of people around him, whether it's Oliver Tambo and a whole lot of other heroes that fought to bring an end to apartheid in South Africa. And Lamin Dambudiba belonged in that group. Everybody knew that going back in 1996, when the APRC took power through the barrel of the gun, they had to be challenged and they had to be stopped. And he was one of them, one of the pioneers that joined the United Democratic Party. And over the years, he has the scars to show for it. I think I was talking to, or maybe sent a voice note, my condolences to Ibrahim Adiba. And really, Banka, the sad thing is, here you have an individual, like you said, paid the ultimate price. He has the scars, decency, honest. He had options. See, during this 22 years of tyrannical rule in the Gambia, Gambians had options. We all made our choices. He made his choice and he stuck with it. He believed in the UDP. What does that mean? He believed in bringing an end to tyranny. See, the only sad part, Banka, is this movie ain't over yet. Unfortunately, he's not going to see the end of this movie. And that is sad. You sacrifice. He did everything he had to do. But unfortunately, he's not going to see the end of the movie. But he can be rest assured, though, that he has done his part, all he could. And it's going to be other people that will take it to the finish line. He has done his part. And if we believe in scriptures, if we believe in the Quran, or the Bible for that matter, people that had beliefs and they fought for those beliefs, and they go to their graves believing in that, one would have to at least believe that maybe he will make it into the heavens. God will have mercy on him. So without a doubt, Banka, it's really a very sad day. We spoke with his son, who happens to live in Minnesota, Karim Diba. We extend our condolences to him and the entire family. Condolences to the United Democratic Party, because without a doubt, one of their pillars has fallen. When UDP needed someone to stand up, he was there that day.
Yeah.
You could see him. I guess he was the tallest guy, right in front.
He's a giant.
Open.
Yeah.
But that said a lot about him. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Bob Samba.
No, Coach Nyang Njie more Dugasi, but his segment is not here yet. Coach is still struggling to get in because whatever is happening to his link. So, but he's yeah. Huh?
I can get out if you want to. Then I can come.
No, you stay. Don't go nowhere. Coach is finally able to come in now. I think I can see him limping into the program.
Why Nyang gisulla nonu de bro?
Nyang, yeah, Fonekani. Oh, he muted himself. Yeah, say that again.
I was outside heading into the house.
Ah, okay. So is it dark in the Gambia right now? I mean, is it?
Come on.
Oh yeah, it is. 5 hours different.
Okay, 7 o'clock. Okay, I got you. No, but really, Father Mose, you've said it all. Lamin Dambudiba, if I can just quickly say this in Mandinka. Mola mi alonko ay banko diya da fale ayala banko kanu ayala dimbal kanu ayala kanundel kanu ayala terror kanu ay mobe kanu because wodona ka na moka lono wala banko yekelo kay ila life inyo ya landi ko nyinde mimbe caring anda tonya fanan kanu kadu ni mo man tonya kanu wobukal lo ay niyo fon la ko elo jamme kelo man easy aman soneya molle niyo potaje ye molle fa la min dambu di bol mi be gambe o nyame nyaaya jere nyaala ye mol muti fa mo banko kan ni kanji bata ni fate nyaala jeli kujuma balkita nyaala jeli ni modo mun aman tonya kanu afanam ba kelo ko mojuma ba ke nyama fule you know what ngona dimba topoto ngana hajo topoto ngani ko braje mon koy en fact ba ke wado mo ko fo mo ñoy ba di ngol kal ko fo ñoy kan samen ko mun ni kelo tuje yala mon koy yalla mo ko man sakle yalla ya jam yalla lonne janni biti afole ni wala je janni tunkal pip mol ko kumo si fa ka bele fo e pri la sondo mo fali bari lamin dambu di banata kala moldi mi yalon ko ab mol kono mi yalon ko wonna mane fali mukko ye miola ye ko be kata ye kata ko beke fo banko bonde be masibo min ko woto ni o mari nata bi intol be ngalne ni kabiri bo bala worla kabiri kelo banna wato minna mote ko min be kende yare e be cew mail tu fo demor min dile jelam bang fo lipo min kela jelam bang fo mineke fo kar ya jamelam akamol fam poison fo wala kenyin labang mo malo bar mo kirente ni ko men ka ni jata kende na sawo na bala jata kende bonna o mail tu woto kula men ka ay hakil tuwol fanan ni kan dol be bulo kono nga kata ko be nga mexo ni mo ne protect ni se makoro min ken la ngi makoy ka mexo le jata kende ya because ni wonte ni pita kan de femi pita sol be tatal janne ani bute jafne wol ibe cew ni kelo ko ni butaw imam fa wolo la fa to bari masibo min gi soto ni kelo kono wole be fa cew woto fanna mi yalon ko fonse duway dro ngana family nga pati nyim fana UDP nge tentu nge jay bari tolle nyim mo sifa fana nyorin kanam mo kendo le mo men ko banko kanu nsa fo ko butun ala ko bolo nyama ngana ni sulo ni na ni ko yay tambi fana pati leader ni se honorable dabo anala pati mo be cew ngana ni ko yani na sulo ngai tan la ko nyinde ni ko ya kula mo woto fana be duwar gon fana kila talaye bari gambia fana ne famo suno ni suno mo gambia beltati bari ndambula min be kelo min na num amantara kun kelala de min kun kilin kelolom abitala hajo to la dimba to bari ay lola banko ya kelo kala banko e won pour banko keloti wodo gambia be le fota bi gambia ni mo gambia be la sunolti wodo se gambia be konton sango fana nga doya tol be ate ani mol min be tara cew nga doye be doron fo ala se be ki argentalati ayon fere junibol be la ay la jaw soneyale ay banko sunelni ka nginan kuti mi alon ko lafta programme yeren wala bi nga mse adingol bi janne karim diba mna bra dia mo la science information amam 30 minutes fancy mba fana yo fala fana anin ala dimbayalu mbaje na bawolu ala muso anin ala maño ni mata tolo bari mbe fana be konto na sangola mba fale ko butun ala ma ala ya sun watin sonen di bari ni mu wati ko lembalti ala ma tala fana afota min na sieto ala ma joke tol be tala ni wala wala ko ni jenne be na programme ko fada mos mané ma wam du war ko ci sosere yeah well anyway coach is still struggling to come in. I see him, but his line is not necessarily his video is not showing. Yeah, he's still struggling. I don't know what's going on his end, but I think 2:30 lang wara am Nyang Njie, right?
No, but how about the I thought we were gonna have Musa Dabo.
No, are we having Musa before Nyang or after Nyang? Mandola Hamilton. I wasn't sure. Okay, coming in. You might go tell Musa.
Yeah, we were supposed to have when Nyang. We're gonna have him till the end of the show. We were gonna talk about Musa and his thing for 30 minutes, and then we bring in Nyang. But either way,
Musa, I sent him a messenger thing, but he hasn't responded back.
Okay, then that's fine.
Haral man you try go on WhatsApp tamit ma set that na ko fa am suma ko fa amé mo ko ne mu try to go on Messenger so because I'm not on video it would be difficult for him. Oh, there he is. He's telling me, Uncle, how are you? Okay, there you go. I'm gonna call Musa on Messenger. But before you deflulu, I think, Coach, if you wanna say something, we were talking about Honorable Lamin Dambudiba, obviously, you know. So if you wanna get into that before we bring Musa in. Hello, Coach. 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 We cannot hear you there. Musa, are you hearing him?
No.
Coach, we cannot hear you.
Oh, we can hear you now. Now
we can hear you. You better not be cussing.
Banka maybe Nyang Njie can call in the next 20 minutes instead. That would be
drop Nazar. Coach, you are cussing all over the place. What's wrong with you? But anyway, we finally can hear you.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, we can hear you. When you started cussing, yes.
Well, sorry guys. Anyway, like full Lamin Dambu Juba definitely to send our condolences to him, that's his family, to the UDP, and to the whole nation. Definitely, these are people, I think, gave it everything they had for country, and I think sometimes, Banka and Musa, we get too comfortable to the extent of forgetting the struggle that was waged by people
Mm.
to get us this liberation that we are all now so happy to celebrate. Because these people gave it all. They were devoid of resources because they could not find a job just by being opposition to Jammeh. And in the process, they went to jail, they were tortured. And the conditions of mile two, and I believe in mile two, anybody who spent there a month, you came out of there with some kind of sickness.
Mm.
And it is sad, uh, it had to come down to this, where somebody who did so well for country during our struggle dies. But again, like I said to his son Demba, uh, this is, at the end of the day, this is what we want when we die, to be remembered for what we did for others, especially
Correct.
the sacrifices that we made for country. Because man, these people, anybody who was in the opposition in the Gambia, man, you carried the burden of over 2 million people on your shoulders every day.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's a great thing. It's a great loss for our country, and we thank him so very much, together with all his comrades that are alive and those that have lost their lives, for everything that they did for our country, the Femi Peterses of the world, and all these other people. And I hope he will be giving a very fitting send off. And I hope both the government and the UDP and the country as a whole will learn from the shortcomings of how Femi Peters was sent off, to at least do right by Mr. Diba. Why with that, may his soul rest in perfect peace. Thank you, guys.
I mean, so I guess let me try to call Musa Dabo, and let me call him on Messenger.
Yeah, just to kind of give people, because I think the agenda that we sent out, obviously, we are going to be talking to Nyang Njie about the budget and other side issues. So this one was not included in the agenda. Musa Dabo is a young guy who wants to live in the Gambia. And, he's been calling us, I think, for the past 3 to 4 weeks. Is he on now?
Musa Junior. Hello, Musa. Musa.
Yeah. And again,
Musa, drop and call me on Messenger. I'm gonna drop your line. Just call me on Messenger when because I don't think he can hear me. Maybe he cannot. So let me drop his line. Maybe you'll call me back. Yeah, go ahead, Father Mo. Sorry.
Banga, after talking to this young guy, I mean, he's almost like he's 22, 23 years old. What I detected, like someone with serious talent, and he also has a passion on filmmaking and cinema. We're talking about the passing of Lamin Dambudiba. That story needs to be told. We've all seen our heroes. Recently, Banka, with this COVID, we all got followed from our jobs. I've been watching a lot of movies, Nigerian movies, movies from South Africa, Senegal. But hardly do I see movies from the Gambia. As if we do not have culture, as if we do not have people that are good at this kind of stuff. So when I spoke to this young guy, I'm like, wow, his story needs to be out there. We get this kind of talent in the Gambia that has not been nurtured. There are financial difficulties. There is no institution or setup. Growing up in the Gambia, there was a lot of, especially some of us that lives in the provinces, we used to have a film unit. I don't know whether you guys remember that.
Yes.
I don't even know whether that thing still exists. There is so-called the National Association of Cultural whatever. In other words, if you're a young guy and you have a passion and you have a skill in filmmaking, where do you go? And what this guy is encountering, especially after seeing some of his movies on YouTube, what this man needs is help. Why is he not getting that? Who is going to tell the story of Adauda in a movie format? Who's going to tell the story of PS Guy? Who's going to tell the story of... I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it exists in the Gambia, maybe it doesn't. But if it doesn't exist, then government really needs to look into this. Where the Mugadabos of this world can go somewhere and pursue their passion and their interests and their skill set. The gentleman told me that he's trying to make a movie on his own. He doesn't even have the funding. Hello? Who's going to fund him?
Yeah, Musa, we can hear you. Just hold on, okay?
Who is going to help him? He's been bound. He told me he's been calling a lot of people, quite a few, like celebrities, people that are out there on media, thinking that at least his story would be out there. He's been calling government institutions to no avail. So what we are saying, though, is to either remind the government or remind people that are out there, the Okodrames of this world, that we have talent in the Gambia. How do we nurture that talent? There is a reason why Senegal is ahead of us when it comes to these areas. We all see that. I mean, you go to YouTube, there are so many Senegalese, what they call them, teaterini, and a whole lot of them. In other words, their talent and their passion of the young people are being nurtured by entities, I believe that. Do we have that in the Gambia? If we don't have it, how do we go about it? How can the private sector get involved? But anyway, I think our listeners need to see at least a clip of his movie. This is like on his own, without no one's help. But that would at least show our listeners that we have this kind of talent in the Gambia. We have the clip with you before we can bring Musa to...
Okay. So, Musa? Okay, Musa, he is actually here, but I'm gonna quickly play the movie, a short clip of the movie. Let me put it that way. Yeah. And yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and go from there.
Hi dear. I left my phone at Amida. Can you please borrow your phone and check my account? Well, I am Zainab and I don't know Windows significant now. All of my life that I do in the video.
Well, you can have a talk if you are done with this video, okay? Thank you.
Bye.
Anyways, I just want to know that this girl, this is not so this girl, she just did something for me and I just so she's in love with me. This girl don't know me. I am a genius. You are a coward. You are a coward. Thank you. A bit just be a man for once. Be a man. The guy is in love. I am the genius in the area. You know believe it. I am telling you. One day. That day.
I love it where he says, "I am a genius in the
Why you
area,
make
Father
this
Mos."
whole thing, so easy like one
So
movie?
I just love the area where a part that where he says, "I'm a genius in the area." This is the movie, The Unfaithful Girl. That's the name of the movie, obviously, and it's on YouTube. But anyway, let's call Musa now and to bring him in because he's been trying to call himself. Let's see.
Hello.
Hello, Musa.
Now,
Yeah. So how are you?
I'm fine. And you?
We are good. So Musa is here. Musa Deng. Obviously, you guys have been talking a lot lately, and arranging all this stuff. So the coach is also here to talk to you about your movie projects because I think there are a lot of them. So share with us this Unfaithful Girl. I mean, it's a very interesting movie. The guy was one of the lines that we picked up over there was quite interesting. So, well, let me just let Musa take over from there because I think Father Mos, you and Musa have had a very good, nice rapport. Go ahead.
Yeah, Musa, thank you for coming to For the People, by the People. Can you hear me?
Musa? Musa? Musa?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me? Huh?
Musa?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay, you can hear Musa, right?
Yes.
Yes, Musa.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Gambians are out there listening to you.
I can hear you guys. I can hear you loud and clearly. Yeah,
okay.
I can hear you loud and clearly.
Okay. Gambians are out there listening to you.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clearly.
Yeah, we've just ran one of your movie clips.
Yeah.
But talking to you, you told me the kind of difficulties that you've been running into. Even though the talent is there, the passion is there. Can you tell our listeners what are some of those problems that is hindering you pursuing this passion that you have?
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Musa. I'm indeed very, very happy to be here today. Thank you, Banka Mane, as well. Well, one of the things that are affecting us here in the Gambia, as actors, and as filmmakers in general, one of the things is that we don't have support, from our own people. We don't have support from our own people, and sometimes, like most of the times we will make films, and at the end of the day, we wouldn't have what we spent on a film. And Gambians would not give us the support that we need, but instead, they will be embracing, they'll be embracing foreign films, stuff like that. Those are the kind of things that we are actually facing. And come to that of GRTS and QCT, they are QTV rather. They are definitely making lives very, very very difficult for filmmakers. You will go on set, do your film, spend thousands, on your film, and at the end of the day, when your film, when your film is out, you will take your film to them, to help you, to look for sponsor. But they will be like, look, we can help you look for a sponsor, but we have to take this particular percentage. And come to think of it, the percentage that they are asking from you, the percentage will not favor you at all. Where are you going to pay your actors? Your actors, have a family to feed. So, it's definitely crazy. And at the end of the day, you just spend a lot of money on that. They would want to take that percentage. It's definitely not going to be favorable. And second thing that, like when you write your script, I mean, you want to have a sponsor, you will roam the entire Gambia, for a sponsor. You will not have sponsor. They will give you they will give you false hope. This is what I will do for you. This particular day, you'll go you'll go the day that they tell you. I mean, you will not even have access to see them. Or sometimes they'll be like, call me. You call them, they will not pick your call. It's very, very disheartening. And I'm just a young filmmaker, 23, just 22 years old. So
How do you normally
my team.
how do you normally fund these movies? How do you normally do that?
Well, yeah, well, I fund my movies by myself because I was working before, so my life saving is what I use to produce my film. So that's what I do. I use my life saving, to produce my film, and sometimes I will write to people, for assistance, and sometimes the people that will help me, are not even Gambian. People that will help are not even Gambian, and the money they send, will not be able to fund the film. But thank God, the money that they send, you can definitely go far because if you come, when you go on set, there are a lot of things to be done. Welfare is there, transportation, feeding, and many stuff, props, and a lot of stuff are there too. So the money that some people will send, definitely helps us a lot. Although we are very appreciative.
Okay. Now, how about have you guys been approaching the government? Is there like an entity that you guys can turn to, like, I don't know, arts and culture, or is there a film unit in the Gambia? And I think Banka, you recommended him one time to talk to, what was his name again, filmmaker?
Sankano, Babuka
Sankano. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. One time Banka recommended Abukar Sankano to me, but my director told me, look, I know Sankano up to my fingertips. Sankano is gonna film this movie, but at the end of the day, he's gonna use an advantage on you because you are probably new, in the film industry. So that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna shoot the film, and at the end of the day,
I don't know what's wrong with his line.
Yeah, I know that the connection is frustrating, but I think that this issue is also very important. Because really, I mean, if we're going to build a new Gambia, I mean, the future is in the hands of young people like him. And it is always important for us to surface their issues and talk about them and see whether there are options available, or also remind the government that these are areas that need to look into. We need to build an institutions like that, where these young people, because can you imagine trying to raise, raising funds to pursue a passion like that? But you didn't there, bro. When you take 20,
it's not cheap. I mean, absolutely, yeah.
It is, and some people are asking if you go to, I think, YouTube. Some of his clips are on YouTube.
I mean, and the thing about these young people and Kitabu and all of them, it breaks my heart when I watch them really exhibit their talent. They are very, very talented, but unfortunately, the support is not there. And this is what there is not. Here in America, when you want to get into movie industry, you go to Hollywood and you start banging on doors. And you start, trying your craft everywhere you go. And eventually somebody somewhere sees the potential and goes, I'm going to have her or him, role. Maybe it might be a minor role in a movie or in a play. But here in the Gambia, you don't have that. So essentially, this is what tends to really hold people down when they are trying to get into these things. He did try to reach out. I introduced him to Sankano. Sankano is the thing, but in the end, the terms, I guess, that Sankano put on the table for him, they found that unacceptable because basically, if I remember very well, my memory is fuzzy on this because it's been years ago. But apparently, Sankano wanted the to have the rights to the movie, Ghana, and then just something like that. I cannot remember the details. I may be misquoting the whole deal here. So that never happened. And but this kid has been knocking on every door in that country, everywhere you think of.
You told me that.
So he's been self-financing. You know, basically, and he's not like he's not, doesn't have the money, and all of them are young kids. They are all in their 20s. So
very young.
So they will go to an uncle banker, and then uncle banker gives them. They go to Uncle Musa. Uncle gives them the thing. Yeah. So they put together and they go pay a videographer to do the shooting. So this is how they operate. And then when that movie comes out, obviously there is no platform to really make money out of it, so that they can recoup even their investment. Exactly. So in the end, they are throwing money at this, money that they don't have, mind you. And in the end, they don't. And I when I watch even Kitabu, it breaks my heart. I see him heading literally in that kind of situation.
And he has talent.
He's
what I don't understand, because when you listen to QTV and GRTS, they're having problems with content. They're always saying they want content to put it on their television stations. But for some reason, why wouldn't Mohammed Jack QTV invest in young talent like that? You don't have content. You have someone like Musa Dabo. You have someone like Tabu. I'm just thinking.
Focus line is having some problems. I don't know why. Yeah. But go ahead.
So to me, I think.
Can I come in, please?
Yeah. Musa, are you back?
Can I come in?
Yes.
Okay.
Like the movie that I did last year, The Unfaithful Girl, you know, I'm here, I'm listening to you. The movie that I did last year, The Unfaithful Girl, you know, we made history. We made history in the Gambia as the first Gambians, you know, to launch a film and the venue is full to capacity. That was history. The premiere was marked as the most attended film premieres ever Gambia had. And we did that launching. We did that launching at Q City, where Mohammed Jah owns Q City. It guess what Mohammed Jah charged us? They charged us for $48,000. $48,000, and they told us that we are not going to bring any food there. We are not going to bring any drink. We have to buy food from them. We have to buy drink from them. That is very, very expensive. What are we going to give to our guests? We don't have money. We have nothing. But at the end of the day, you know, we are able to cope with it. We don't enter there with, you know, we don't enter with water. We don't enter with food. But you know, we buy their food. You know, we bought their drink and we give it to our guests. At the end of the show, you know, I was gutted and devastated. I actually wanted to quit everything and let me go and find job. You know, to do.
No, don't give up on your dream. Don't give up on your dream.
Movie, you know, I want to do it. But at the end of the day, this is, you know, something in me. You know, after all what I've spent, you know, in that film, after all what I've spent in that film, at the end of the day, we $0, zero, because what Mohammed Jah charged us for $48,000 just for his venue, $48,000 for his venue, and then the PA systems are not included. You know, it's crazy, and we paid about 20-something thousand for food. Foods and drink, 20-something thousand. We don't have anything in the fund, nothing absolutely. That was so disheartening. And at the end of the day, you know, I worked again. I had another script. I looked for sponsor also, and I had to finance my own film again. The breathless student. I premiered that film again. You know, I premiered that film again. We don't have money, and I tried to reach out to Q City, you know, for them to you know, to look for sponsor. The terms that he gave me, it's not favorable at all. I'm losing a lot of money. My savings account right now is broke. There's $0 in my savings account, and I'm not working right now. So, and there's a film that I started also, you know, called The Soulmate. It's a TV series. When I started that film, I used all my life savings. Now I could not even continue with that TV series. I couldn't continue because I have no sponsor. So you know, that was one of the reasons why I even, you know, tried to contact you know, Mr. Musa Dieng, you know, for him to try and then you know, and help us. We are just young, just 20-something. You know, Banka would ascertain that, you know, I've been knocking almost all doors in the Gambia because he knew it very well.
Yeah, it's sad.
I mean, when he called me and he told me his age, I was like, oh my God, it's just like my Keba. I said I told him that actually I came back in the US in 96. He said, hey, I was born in 1997. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy sounds so mature. Because I know when I was 22, 23, I don't think I was anywhere close to. And again, this is where the Ibrahim Silas, Minister of Information and Technology, I'm not saying that you have the answers, but these are young people that we need to tap into and help them out. I mean, if you're going to give out business loans out there, I mean, these are the kind of people that should be given access to funding. And Mohammed Jazz and GRTS, you need to invest in young people like this. I mean, that's all you can do. I mean, we've spoken to Malik Kah several times. QTV, they're having problems with content. I mean, this guy, clearly listening to him, he knows what he's doing. I mean,
let me tell you another funny thing about this Musa and this group. You know, it's not even just movies that they have talent for. Even with sensitization stuff. Yeah. Because in the Gambia, we need so much sensitization on issue after issue after issue after issue. These people, Musa, if you watch them do even say a drama show,
you're telling me that
about tribalism or about this, about that, they do issue stuff. You are sitting there going, why would the government not even recruit these people to go around the country and do dramas to sensitize? Because they are young. So obviously, people, the youth, their age will be more. Yeah. So they take them all around the country, give them a vehicle to go around the country and pay them or give them a contract to go and sensitize about one issue or another. How many issues do you have in the Gambia that the country or the youth, even about backway issues? I mean, I can go through a whole lot of issues where you need sensitization. Government could easily hire these people and say, hey, we'll pay you $500,000. You guys, you will do 30 or 40 episodes around the country. We'll give you a vehicle. You go and village after village and even give them a list of villages that they want them to go. This is all something that they can do where these kids can continue their trade and advance their course. At the same time, while the country also is, benefiting from it. But we don't tend to really, I mean, I don't know. I'm confused about, sometimes I look at Gambia and I don't know what really we want. I don't know. Because our actions don't align with our aspirations, really.
And this is where I think, Banka, the reality of our developmental evolution, if you want to call it that, this is where government has to step in. If you're going to rely on the private sector, these folks, they're in it to make money. Understand? I mean, and rightly so. I understand why sometimes you want to invest in a talent like this and you want to, right away get your return on investment. But I do believe, I don't know how they get it done in Senegal. We've all grew up hearing about Naka, Sen organization, you Naka Tudati, Naka the JAR, they have these arts institutions and things like that. I mean, I think that we need to replicate that. We have the National Arts and Council. I'm not sure how involved they are in these kind of things. I have no idea. I mean, growing up too, I remember when we used to have these Nyom Fabala Kunate, they had this, what was the name of that organization?
The National Center for Art and Culture.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the National Center for Art and Culture here in the Gambia. I'm sorry for my language, but there's nothing that they are doing for actors. Yesterday we had a congress. The fourth Congress of the Gambia Union Theatre. We had a congress whereby they elected new executives, to lead us. And National Center for Art and Culture, their director is there. There's this guy who made a report, the finance secretary of the Gambia Union of Theatre. It is very, very, very sad. He made mention of this thing. It made almost all the actors said yes. He said, since they came into power for the past 9 years up to date, he said, they have no money.
They have no?
The National Center for Art and Culture, they've been going
Yeah, the line is not very clear.
Mm-mm.
But anyway,
But
Banka, I think, I mean,
Yeah.
at least
So,
we got the.
but if we can probably ask him, Father Mos, what do they need right now? If there is anything that
Right.
people can do, what exactly is it at this moment, Musa? What do you need help? What how can one help you guys right now at this moment? What are you trying to do? Okay, Musa? Musa? Okay, all right. Yeah, his line is just messed up. It the network. Musa, we can't hear you. Yeah, his line even dropped. But anyway, Father Mos, this is very, very sad. You know, it's extremely sad, unfortunately. When you have young kids going around the country knocking on doors, not looking for handouts, they just are saying, "Hey, we have this skill that we are trying to, do something with. Please help us with the facilities." These kids, they don't have even cameras. They don't have videography. This equipment. They don't have any of that. So the QTVs, the GRTSs of this world, and others who have these kinds of facilities, I hope they will even step up and say, "Hey, if you guys want to shoot a movie, because that's a lot of their production, their cost. Their production cost is a lot of the money that they pay upfront. If they go to any videographer over there, that person will come up with a budget and say, 'This is what I'm charging you to pay me.'" So if these folks with the state-of-the-art equipment can just step up and say, "Okay, we'll help you shoot your movie," and something along those lines, help them, just kind of give them a lift. Once they get to that little level right there, you can say, "Okay, now you can fly on your own, go and do your thing. Now you are out there." But if you cannot even break through or get anything like that, it's almost impossible. These kids are from poor backgrounds. It's not like their parents are rich. Not at all. I know very well.
And Banka, some guy who works for international organizations, Basil Jones, he just sent a thing. I mean, there are actually resources that are available internationally. He calls them, the creative industry is made up of food, film, and fashion sectors. The EU ACP have a program to support the creative industry. And Gambia is a member of that entity. There are bilateral partners that will support creative industry. So my thing is, this is where government really, and Ibrahim Asila, if he's listening, I mean, they need to formalize these things. They need to really help these young people. I think there is a way out. But for anybody to believe that we can develop the film industry in the Gambia by really pinching from these young people, I mean, that's not going to happen. It's really not. But anyway.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. It is what it is. But again, this is an experience I'm sure shared by Ifam Wondis of this world. All our old good old artists from way back when, and the same problem is sad. But this is just our Gambian reality for the artists, and it's just sad. It breaks my heart really. Musa, hello, Musa. Musa, the network is bad, very, 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 very bad. Musa?
Anyway.
Okay, yeah, it's okay.
At least, Banka, we are able to put it out there.
Exactly. Now we can.
Maybe behind the scenes, we'll work with him and see where letters can be written, and they can reach out to arts and culture. I mean, Ibrahim Asiles and the Mohammed Jess of this world, and even GRTS.
Correct.
But anyway, we got our Mr. Njie.
Yeah.
Brother Nyang.
When he wants to start trouble, Banjula they go after and no Banjuli they don't play. When you go after Banjul, they will come after you. It's going to be pound for pound, blow for blow. I mean, this is going down.
Yang bukan dugalan Nyang de.
But anyway,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us once again. Bourgeois like him are the ones who can afford the internet like this, where you don't see any issues, no breakup, no nothing. Who is your internet service carrier, Nyang? Who is your, where did
I'm not going to make free money for someone, but no, they don't deserve it. I pay, so I'm not going to promote them.
Oh, come on! I mean, some of us can know where to go.
Well, I will tell you offline, but I'm not going to put it online. They don't give me free service.
Okay, you can inbox it to me on Messenger. Tell me
No
who.
problem. I sure will do that.
Anyway, coach, we cannot. Furthermore, can you hear, coach?
Ken munu ko dega billahi.
Oh, now we can hear you. By me, Kibi,
No, it's conspiracy. It's the Atlanta conspiracy against me.
So I blocked you on all the front. So I'm making sure you have no way coming in. So
yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and Musa, not this Musa, the talented Musa that was just on. You know what? Don't be discouraged. You gotta keep on keeping on. Gambia mom is just a country, but it's just sad. We only celebrate you when you are way up there. You'll never support you get to where you ought to be, and you just gotta push. And those that are watching and have the means, these people need help. We need to document Gambia's history, which we are losing, and these are young people, young talented people that we can use to make that a reality. But it is what it is. But Nyang, welcome. We'll be talking about the budget. I know you were excited about that. And some of the issues that confront our country from Nekani. I saw you write a very interesting piece, how you were in love with candidate Barrow, and I think President-elect Barrow, but you are not in love with the guy that he has become. But we'll delve into all that, and then and not to put you in any hot water, even though Hamnan UID, you don't care about those too much. So, but
I don't.
Yeah, but anyway, what is your take at the budget? Just looking at it, it's a draft now until it is passed.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me. And for quite a while now, it's almost about 3 years, people like me have been raising the alarm about some of the public infrastructure conquest. I call it a conquest that this government has been embarked on over the past 3 years. You see, in life, there's nothing like a free lunch. You should spend what you have, or you spend what you envisage to have. I will start with the budget 2021. The budget 2021 inherited commitments made in 2019 and started being executed in 2020, and it will continue at least for the foreseeable future, i.e. 4 to 5 years. What does that mean? I will start with the Banjul Rehabilitation Project. The Banjul Rehabilitation Project is taking significant chunk of resources in terms of local financing. Generally, Gambia's infrastructure projects have been funded by international agencies, and Gambia putting a token sum as part of their GLF contribution, Gambia Local Fund, anywhere between 2 and 8%, depending on the donor and the type of intervention they expect from the local counterpart fund. And basically, the reason why donors were doing that is for countries to have ownership of the project. If someone is paying for something 100%, you are not that much involved. But if you have a stake in it by putting resources in it, you have a stake. So therefore, the donors were trying to erase the moral hazard of aid by giving you 100% of something whereby you are not committed to it. But what the government of the Gambia has done with the Nyomi Hakalan, with the Banjul Rehabilitation, is to have 100% funding. It means it's the tax-paying Gambian who's going to pay for it. And if we don't collect it in taxes, we're going to borrow in terms of domestic debt to make up these obligations. Is that good for the country? No. And that's why our budgets have bloated exponentially. And that's why we have had a supplementary appropriation. And these things are not hidden costs, but they're just costs that are going to be deferred. And up to the next 18 to 20 years, Gambians who are 2 months old today will be paying for something they know nothing about. And I think that is a travesty in itself. And that's not what budgeting and the principles of budgeting are all about.
Okay. Nyang, I have argued here that what we see, based on what I've been observing since budget speech used to be the best thing that everybody would listen to go around radio, the radio, and listen to the ministers deliver the budget speech and all that. That what we have is pretty much tai nyapa. It's a copy and paste, pretty much. It's just like the same formula. They just plug in the numbers, and I don't see any effort being made to at least be innovative. Like, what are we going to do to reinvent the wheel? Am I right, or am I just being...
Actually, you are very right, Coach, for the simple fact that if you take grant and aid out, 80 to 85% of the budgets are taxes. We need to increase on what you call user fees, non-tax revenue. That's what the government needs to grow. Non-tax revenue can come in different forms. And that's what we need. If you overtax the economy, you shrink your base. When your base shrinks, productivity goes down, and therefore it becomes a zero-sum game. So what needs to happen is Gambia has what you call a resource envelope. You look at your macroeconomic environment and you do your forecast based on your resource envelope and a realistic projection of where the economy is and should be. Today, if the Minister of Finance is fair to the Gambian economy, he will understand that the Gambian economy has been on a vacation for over 8 to 9 months, meaning productivity has been very lackluster. And what does that mean? It means taxation would have gone down anywhere between 13 and 17%. And economists generally tend to have what you call a lag effect. Lag effect meaning what happens today takes a while before it takes root. And once it takes root and makes a U-turn, it takes a little further. So if the budget is looking at January to spend and the macro variables they are using, I think they're not being fair because it's overly ambitious and it's not reflective of our current macro situation.
Musa.
Brother Nyang,
thank you.
Yeah. Listening to you, it reminds me years ago taking macro and micro analysis classes. Unfortunately, my people in Kaur, they have no clue what you're talking about. So let us kind of scale it down so that my people in Kaur can understand where you're going with this kind of argument. You work in finance years ago. Can you walk us through, and we went through 3 governments, the First Republic, the second, and of course the current government. We are at it again, what I call the annual dance of budget preparation. Can you walk us through, I mean, the preparation, and also, is there any kind of economic philosophy behind it? Or is it just the same old from the First Republic, Second and Third Republic? Can you kind of walk us through? Because you work in finance too. You participated in this process. How is it different? How is it different when you were in finance and how it is done now?
Thank you, Musa. I think budget preparation basically is universal to a point. You need to know where your money is going to come from, and you need to know where you want to spend what you collect. That's the basis of budgeting. So you go back to the household. If you're making 10 and you want to spend 90, you really have a problem of sustainability and how to get it. So in the budget process, there are different stages and different levels. Okay, the first thing, you have a call circular. The call circular, you create a call circular, get in touch with the sectors. We're going to create the budget, and in the call circular, you put the resource envelope that your sector prepare your budget for 2019 or 2021, and these are the indicators. Then once the budget comes, you have what you call bilateral consultation between the Ministry of Finance, the Exchequer, and the specific sector concerned, and a back and forth until there is a semblance of agreement on where their resources should be. Then after that, everything is put into the draft estimates. The draft estimates will now be checked and see whether it is in conformity, one, with the medium-term expenditure framework, which is called the MTEF, and the MTEF should drive where and how our budget should be. For example, if you look at the MTEF for 2020-2021, it is geared more towards social expenditure. But if you look at our infrastructure conquest as a nation, we are at war with infrastructure right now as a nation. If you look at the infrastructure conquest of this country, it is not a social expenditure, because a social expenditure is something to uplift the poor and vulnerable, also make sure that they have social safety nets and safeguards to have a decent and a dignified livelihood.
But Nyang, there are economists out there, and I think was it Mr. Monday that made the argument that deficit financing in itself is not a bad thing. And if you look at the 2021 budget, most of the investment is going into education. A good number of it is going into infrastructure. What is wrong with that? Why is that a bad thing?
Deficit financing is not bad at all, but it has to be sustainable and productive. When you borrow money and you just use it to pay rent, buy fuel, air tickets, it is bad because it doesn't.
Hold on.
Allow me.
Hold on. No, but I want us to be fair with them too.
But allow me to learn.
Okay,
if you allow me, I will come. I say if. So
if.
I'm giving you a hypothetical. I'm not saying that's what they're doing. If you borrow and spend on that, it doesn't yield any economic return, so the payback may be a problem. Infrastructure is a good investment, but the investment has to be incremental over a period. You see what has happened, and we need to agree and accept that. Political expediency has hijacked the economic rationale behind budgeting. What is political expediency? Political expediency are things that favor politicians, but it doesn't favor the macro environment. Overtaxation has killed Jewel Brew as an industry, and they're gone. Overtaxation is also shrinking down what we call the formal sector of the economy, and the informal sector of the economy is growing bigger and bigger because taxation has become a burden to business operators, especially small and medium-sized companies. Yes, infrastructure is good, but you need to have an incremental approach to development. Development is the process, it's not a leapfrog.
But Nyang, incremental development. Nyang, let's be honest to ourselves. You talk about the Hakalang Road, people that live in Naomi. These are people that have been left behind for the past 50 years. Just yesterday, hold on, there is this Kaur Jimbala road launching. You want to tell the people of Jimbala that, hey, we do not really have enough money because we don't want to tax our people and invest it in this kind of infrastructure because we have to do it incrementally. You want to talk about, we cannot have it both ways, Nyang. We cannot talk about what's wrong with our education. A good chunk of what this particular 2021 budget is going to basic education. How can one argue on one hand that maybe we are not in a position to fund that, because it's going to come down to trying to prioritize. We can't have it both ways. Our economy is small, granted, and basically government relies on taxes that they collect from you and me in order to be able to fund the services. So we have to make up our mind. Either don't tax us because they have no way of providing these services. You're questioning the Nyomi Hakalang Road. That is needed if we are ever going to build an economy. So this idea of incremental, Meaning what? Now, if you have Mamburin Njie's ear, Nyang, you are there as one of his advisors. What would you tell him that is wrong with this 2021 budget? And how would they go about it? Do they have to abandon these road construction? Because you call it political expediency. In other words, you are questioning their motivation. You are not questioning whether these investments are priorities or not. If you had his ear, what would you tell Mamburin Njie?
All right. Everything is a priority in development. But when you have scarce and meager resources, you need to reprioritize your competing priorities. And when you reprioritize your competing priorities, you look at what is the most urgent, critical, and will yield you most of social dividend. Therefore, if I were in a position to advise Mamburin Njie, not even Mamburin Njie, because Mamburin Njie is just a caretaker of the collective good. If I were in a position to advise the president, I will tell the president, yes, let's spend more on social programs, education, healthcare, roads we need to. But what we need with roads, let's look for partners that can help. Let's look for areas that we can do public-private initiatives and start building toll roads where private money comes into Gambia and these private monies can be used. You look at Senegal, their toll road was paid by FRH. And the society is benefiting because they are using the road today. But it is to be paid for by the users, and that's what you call user fees. That's non-tax. So that's why earlier I said that we need to try and move the economy from a tax-based economy more of a user fee-based economy. And these user fees will bring in revenues, and these revenues will come for expenditure. And once they come for expenditure, it reduces the tax burden. The tax burden in Gambia is the problem why this economy is not growing. Because if you look at what we call the LTU, the large taxpayer unit, the amount of companies in there relative to the overall economy is very small. And guess what? These people pay nothing less than 60 to 70% of the overall taxation. That is a problem, and that is what we call tax burden.
But Nyang, okay, before I let Banker come in, the last time I checked, you have the AfroCell. I mean, these people are amassing a lot of profit. They're making a lot of money in the millions. So you're telling me that government should lift the pedal, taxing the AfroCells of this world, just so that the people in Nyomi can have a Hakalang Road? You think that is stifling the economy?
I never said that, and let it be made clear. I'm saying that the big companies like the AfroCells and the Comiums and the Q-Cells are less than 9% of the economy, and they contribute to over 70% of the taxes. That is what you call a tax burden. We need to diversify.
They're the ones amassing the profit. They are the ones amassing the profit. They are the ones that have a monopoly in an industry. So clearly, I mean, they would be the one paying the taxes, no doubt.
Mr. Jang, in any economy, what you want is an equitable distribution of taxes. Don't let the few shoulder.
You sound like some of those Republicans here in the US. They make that argument all the time, basically making the argument that these big companies are actually the ones paying a good chunk of the taxes, and you're making that same argument that it should be spread to who? The farmers in Kau?
Can I give you an example?
Go ahead.
Banjul breweries suffered because of overtaxation, and now they're in Senegal producing and sending it to Gambia, and we are buying it, courtesy of overtaxation. So you need to understand the consequences of overtaxing an economy and the burden it has. Because today, you and I, we are all complaining of poor telecom services in the Gambia. Guess what? If these companies were having enough, they will reinvest in capital items that will make their services more efficient. But if they're competing between taxation and reinvestment, you and I suffer in the quality of services we receive. So it's a double-edged sword, and it's a flip side of the very coin of what you want.
Thank you very much, Nyang. Banga.
Yeah, well, you know, when you have two economic giants talking,
economic giant, I'm not even close to that.
Well, I would say three economic giants, Ford, Musa, and Nyang, talking economics. Somebody like me who doesn't basically it would be ridiculous for me to even want to butt into that. So if I sound clueless and just crazy, Nyang and Musa and Coach, you guys can forgive me for that. But now, I mean, I know Musa touched on this a little bit when he said, and that's when my actually, believe it or not, our power went on, off and on over here on this side. I don't know why. You just want
County.
and everything, I know, but anyway. So I missed quite a lot of what you guys said. But I want to be the devil's advocate here. Assume Musa's role for a minute, since he's not as good at it. The role, this idea that deficit spending is a bad thing, and I'm glad, Anyang, you admitted, you basically considered and said, no, deficit spending is not necessarily bad, and that's the point. Now, if the government, because in the end, it's all about the tax base. If we expand the tax base, obviously these things will have the effect of having to even rake in more taxes, obviously, because you have increased number of people that are employed, that are employing businesses, and so more taxes going to come into government coffers. Now, but the way the government does that, obviously the private sector will play their part. But the government, on the other hand, in our case, especially in Africa, where the government seems to funnily be the biggest employer, I don't know why. But anyway, if the government decides to borrow money, or you call it deficit spending, spend in the deficit of billions, and then invest it in capital projects where literally, and this is the question that I have, whether when they are building these roads, for instance, the people that are actually working there, because I see in Africa where they will take these big contracts, they will give to the Chinese will bring their own Chinese folks from China, they will come and do the work, and they go home, which is crazy to me. Anywhere in the world, I have never seen it anywhere except in Africa. That's the only place you see that kind of madness. Now, in our case, if those young that are working in this road construction sector, building these roads in the Gambia, like Hakaram, are actually Gambians, why do you have a problem with it? Because yes, it's deficit spending, and yes, it is one of those things where those people will earn income and they'll go back and spend that income in these, in the communities that they are from. And that's going to spur growth, economic growth in those communities, because economic activity is going to really start to go up. And so in the end, this is going to have some sort of a multiplying effect for the economy. Am I crazy again with my economic theory?
Banker, you are crazy. That's a Trump.
Okay, why is that crazy? Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very superficial approach to looking at it, because you need to understand deficit spending in the case of the Gambia is financed through public borrowing in the form of treasury bills, right?
Okay, but why is that a problem?
It is a big problem. Because the more you borrow treasury bills, you create what you call crowding out effect. The crowding out effect is the government, the central government, is now competing with commercial banks for deposits.
Yes.
Because the deposits from a commercial bank can be used by an entrepreneur in the form of a loan to do a project, and that grows the economy. When the government mop up liquidity from the system and use it for public or domestic debt borrowing, it is what we call a crowding out. And that crowding out takes away productive resources from the private sector and bring it to the public sector. And most of the time, that's not the best efficient use of resources. And that affects the economy at large. And that again makes interest rates to change. Because when government wants, and the bank is giving you 6% return. Let's say today the bank is giving you 6% on deposits. Now the government of the Gambia wants to raise capital. They now effectively raise the rates to 8%. So most depositors will rather buy treasury bills than go to the bank and deposit. And that is bad for the economy, for crying out loud. So it's very superficial looking at employment generation. You need to look at the checks on
Nyang, I can see again. This is where I have a problem with your whole submission on this issue, and that is when the government does these things in the Gambia. I mean, based on my perception of it, and you can correct me here again. You are the expert. When they issue these bonds, guess who is the biggest buyer is? The banks in the Gambia are all lazy. They're the ones who go and scoop up all these things from the government. They literally buy all these and then they scoop all the benefits. Now, in the end, the private sector, come on now, most of these things don't go to the private sector. It is in fact the banks that buy these things. Instead of really going out and borrowing it to the people, they think that's too risky. And then they just go and buy these treasury bills. Isn't that the case? Or am I wrong again?
Banker, that's why we call it a moral hazard, because treasury bill is risk-free money. The banks buy it, go to sleep, and wait for the tenure and collect their return.
But let me push back.
Allow me. And because the banks are doing that, they are forgetting about the entrepreneur that needs money. Because if you're giving an entrepreneur money, you need to mitigate the risk. You need to factor in the risk. If you buy T-bills, you go to bed and sleep. So government is creating a moral hazard for the banks to lend to entrepreneurs. Instead, the government is helping banks to come and park. It's just like a parking lot. You park your money at the
but then you are trying to have this both ways. You claim that they are taking this from the private. Just hear me now. You said that what essentially is happening is the government goes out there and then they buy these pretty much scoop all from the private sector and from the private individuals. And so the banks don't have the money to borrow so that they can grow and lend it to the people out there. This is what you are saying. What I'm trying to say is this. At the end, when the government issues these treasury bills, it's the bank that actually go out there and buy a bunch of it. When they buy these things, I would think that when the government borrows this money, they go and engage in these capital projects. If the Gambian citizens are the ones that are being employed in those sectors, those folks will make the money. So the money is going to just hear me out. I sound crazy to you. I get that. I'm the layman on this. And the private individual, the little guy that is in Sabah Sanjal, if he has a job in building that Hakalang Road, he's going to be paid salary. And now all of a sudden he has disposable income. He goes out there and spends it in the economy. And the money starts to flow in the whole entire economy. Now, you are saying that's not a prescription for growth. But I'm just saying, somebody else could make that argument. And that would be
Banker, you missed the boat again. You have missed the boat. The banks, they got deposits from the general public. So the money that the banks are taking from the general public is what they take to the central bank. And if they do that, they're depriving entrepreneurs of cash. So therefore, you don't want T-bills to be competing for deposits. Because when T-bill, if you look at 2017 and 2018, T-bill rates went so low, and the banks didn't find it attractive to take money to the central bank. And they were calling entrepreneurs to give them loans. If that cycle changes, the banks will now once again go back and deposit depositor monies at the central bank at a risk-free rate, go to bed for 365 days and get their return. That's not what we want. That's what we call the crowding out effect. The central bank is crowding out would-be depositor funds from the banks and bringing it directly into the central bank in the form of treasury bill. That is not good. Mind you, treasury bill was made available for a reason. Treasury bill is a monetary tool that is supposed to mop excess liquidity in the system to avoid inflationary tendencies and reduce pressure. It is a monetary tool, and that makes everyone money supply to normalize. But now, if government want fiscal expenditure by way of public borrowing, they hit the economy. When they hit the economy, deposit rate goes down within the commercial banks, and deposit rates at the central bank goes up. When deposit rates at the central bank goes up, entrepreneurs don't get loans because banks are getting risk-free money at a decent return.
Okay. So now, okay. So now, what you essentially you are saying is that the banks are scooping all the money up and pretty much taking it from the depositors and then using that money to go and buy these treasury bills from the government, and then all that. Yeah, just hear me out. we're having a conversation. All this money ends up being in the central bank. And there is no money in the economy now or at the banks to loan out to the little guy. But then, when you look at it in the Gambia, unfortunately, generally these banks, they are loans. The loans that they issue out, even to businesses, and it's a very discouraging factor. Now, one can say that maybe the interest rate at the government side, what we call here the discount window, on the government side is probably high. I don't know what the interest rate is, whether when they borrow what they borrow to the banks. I don't know. Maybe you know that better than me. You can educate me there. But the banks in the Gambia, if you go to any of those banks today or any other day, and you want to borrow money from them, I don't care what is happening around. Those interests are just always so high that already that's a discouraging factor for the, listen to me, for the borrower. Even when I remember when the government came out and said that they have reduced interest rates. This was what the Gambia government's own statement. They said they reduced interest rates. But those interest rates did not reflect in the way the borrowing, the interest rate that the banks were charging to the customers. Maybe you can educate me here. I don't think that was the case. So in other words, what happens in real economic terms in the West, where the government will reduce interest rates sometimes to zero. So that means banks can literally run to the government and borrow as much money as possible, and then give out low interest rates, which will encourage more people to take loans and then more activity in the economy. I get the whole concept. In our case in the Gambia, unfortunately, even when the government claims to have reduced interest rates, I don't see that kind of correlating with the kind of economic activity that one would anticipate, by way of banks now really taking it upon themselves to say, okay, now we are getting these things at a lower cost. We are going to turn around and then loan it out and make our money. I don't necessarily see that. So what they do is, the moment the government issues treasury bills, I'm thinking this is a scam. Maybe that's what it is. Educate me. The moment government issues treasury bills, guess what? The banks will take that money and then they'll run to the government and buy as much of it as possible. So in essence, they don't seem to really think there's any incentive to borrow money to the little guy or the businessman out there. They think this is where they make all their money. Again, tell me, am I getting this all wrong? Go educate us here.
You have answered the question that when government issue T-bills, the banks run and put in money there because it's called risk-free investment. You don't make any loss. You're guaranteed your last butut at the end of the tenure. Whether it's
but government has to issue bills. Government has to
allow me. So that's not the problem.
Finance projects without doing that. You tell me how.
Here's the problem. You have what you call cost of funds. The cost of funds is the risk-free rate plus a premium, right? The premium is the interest you pay to your depositors, is the admin cost of running the bank, and whatever is left to give to your shareholders. So the banks are not pricing themselves out of the market. Always, there is a tendency to have a parallel line between the risk-free rate and the interest rates being charged by the banks. Normally, you can have anywhere between 4 to 6 points between the interest rates and the risk-free rate. Why is it so? Because today, when you buy T-bills, go to bed and sleep. You will get exactly what you're supposed to get. If you give a loan to Musa Jeng, you have 60% likelihood of him paying you back, and that 40% you have no mitigation for it. So therefore, you don't have the appetite. But if there is no government borrowing, the banks will be very creative and they will secure them depositors' money and make sure they lend people. And we have seen that in 2018. We have seen that in 2019. But the current trajectory of government borrowing will take us back to what you call debt unsustainability, whereby Gambia will happen to have another debt stress situation.
Okay, so now what you are telling me, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you are telling me, government should not, Coach, let me just ask one last question. I'll be out. What you are telling me is that the idea of the government borrowing and engaging in these capital projects, correct me here if I'm wrong, because the capital projects have to go on. We have to build roads, we have to build infrastructures, we have to take care of our energy needs, we have to take care of our, water resources need. We have to invest in these things. They don't come cheap. What you are saying is government should stay away from these things, or what is your prescription? What exactly are you saying here?
Government should invest in public infrastructure, because our country's public infrastructure portfolio is very poor. But in as much as we need to invest in it, we need to do it in a sustainable manner. Now, imagine the Banjul roads alone. We have this year in February, the first tranche was $406 million 1 year. And now there is a likelihood that the contract has been amended, whereby instead of paying annually, you may have to pay based on certificates completed. Meaning today, if we complete 600 million in 2021, we have to pay 600 million. Two things there: fiscal programming. If you cannot program your expenditures, you are in some deep trouble. That's number one. Number two, you have two concurrent major projects to finance: Nyomi Hakalang and Banjul. Banjul has minimum 5 more years to be paid off. So imagine 400 million a year plus another 400 million to 500 million, give and take, just on infrastructure that is 100% funded by government. We may have anywhere between 800 million to $1 billion to pay on an annual basis. Can our tax base sustain that? The answer is no. Can we continue to borrow? No. Why? Because if you borrow, what it does, it takes away when it comes time to pay monies that you could have put in health, monies that you could have been put in agriculture, education, and at the end, society doesn't win. So therefore, sustainable growth and sustainable infrastructure growth is what we need as a country. If wishes were horses, all beggars be riding. But we don't have a Santa Claus, and our central bank is not Santa Claus.
Okay, go ahead.
We are.
Yeah.
We
can't hear you.
Are you guys hearing me?
Now
yes.
Okay, now I can hear you. Now.
Nyang.
Yes, sir.
I saw Musa Jeng jump quickly and talked about that the majority of the money will be going to education, because I think the projection is like 2,811,691,285 will be going to education. Then what I did, I went back to the last budget. And what I realized is, and this is basic education, that of that money, last budget, it was 2,610,000,000 plus. 70% of it, 70.7% of it was recurrent. Only 29.3 was for developmental. So meaning that my belief is, of course, you will expect we have a vast number of teachers to pay salaries and schools to maintain. But it looks like we are throwing money at issues and not necessarily looking at solutions to that problem. Because if you look at our education system, especially our basic education system, it has a lot to be desired. Even though President Barrow has claimed that he had built 3,000 classrooms, I would really want our journalists to do journalistic work and go around the country and let them count the 3,000 classes. Because what we see are mostly kids sitting on the floor doing their work or in critic classrooms. So I'm thinking, even though 2.8 billion is being thrown at education, 70% of it or more will be going to recurrent and not development budget. Am I making sense?
You are very right. And this is the same thing. Maybe if I was having this conversation with Musa Jeng 12 years ago, he would have said to me, but we are making schools everywhere and giving access to everybody. That's why economies believe in incremental approach to development. Yahya Jammeh came in with the concept of access over quality or relevance. Yes, he built more schools, more kids ended up having opportunities to go to school, but at the end of the day, we have created more functional literates than people who can really do something with their lives, i.e., we built schools, we didn't worry about quality. And that's why the recurrent budget is so bloated. And if you look at this recurrent budget, if you look at student head, how much is going back to the classroom to augment the quality of education per child? It's not much, because our resources are spent to keep the manpower and whatever is needed to keep the schools going. Is that what the country needs? I think that's not the case. So therefore, you are very right, Coach.
Thank you, because I saw Tunde Jones just saying here that actually this year 98% would be recurrent and 2% development. But let's go back to the debt. I've seen last year they wanted to, I think what they allocated was about 9 billion to pay for the debt. That was out of 22 billion, which was almost about 48 or so percent of the total budget. This time we are talking about 5 point something percent. Yes, deficit spending is great, like Musa would say, and Banker, to a certain extent. But the situation that we have in our country, and I've had for a very long time, is that loans have been taken in the name of the people, but the people rarely see those loans. Let's look at even the Hakaland Road and all these things. How many times have we built roads that need to be rebuilt again because of the quality of the road itself? Because Mr. Barrow has claimed that he had built over 6,000 kilometers of road. I think that's what he claimed. In I don't know how many, 600 or 6,000 kilometers of road.
No, five. I think he said, yeah, probably 6,000 kilometers.
600 kilometers.
No, 600.
600
kilometers.
But what I'm saying here is, yes, deficit spending is great, but if it is not meaningful, then it doesn't mean anything. Let's look at this deficit spending that we are talking about. Now we have to pay about $5 billion to service loans. But you look at the Gambia today, and we have to, I think this is a conversation. I think we have to start looking at what is in the interest of the people and not what is political expediency. And I agree with you, because there is nothing better than just building highways and then have stone laying, this thing, opening it, this summer, and all these things happen. But why is it that the effort that we're making in building roads is not being made to invest in our healthcare system? Because how many would have long-term effect in the lives of the people? Because if you look at it, Musa, I know you're smiling. Since Gambia became independent, we've never had any minister claim about lack of transportation to go anywhere. But since then, our mothers now have graduated from walking to the hospitals to using donkey carts. So in essence, I believe our budgets are not built based on priorities of what is in the interest of the people, but what is politically expedient. If it's great for the people, wonderful. But I believe that we've spent so much time in erecting structures that we do not even maintain very well, rather than upgrading the livelihood of the people. I don't know whether, I think I'm making sense. Anyway,
you are making a whole lot of sense, Coach, and I can't agree more with you for the simple fact. If I go to Katong and I drive from Katong all the way to King Corner, I can attest I will not see more than 6 road signs telling me speed limits, don't stop, no U-turn, whatever. So roads are just not dark bitumen. Roads have accessories, and roads also need maintenance. And this is why we are coming back to the incremental approach to development. If we are building roads faster than we can have monies to maintain them, those roads are going to be erased in the next 5 years, and thereby washing away our investments. Roads come with periodic maintenance, and that's what I want Musa Jeng to understand. You know, it would be nice to have roads for everybody and the poor, but we need to be realistic of our macroeconomic situation and the realities of our country vis-a-vis our earning potential. What these people have done, this particular administration, They are touting that they have built more kilometers of road than Jaora and Jame combined. For me, that is not something to be proud of, because the roads that they've met in Gambia, the first thing they should have done as a prudent government is to secure those investments. Those roads were built by the sweat and tears of the people of the Gambia, and we are seeing those roads decimated by rain, water erosion, and poor maintenance. So instead of building new roads, let us resurrect what we have already invested in. You see, this is a political game, and a lot of Gambians fall for that ploy. And that ploy is very, very superficial, and we should transcend being bamboozled by kilometers of road if roads are not being maintained. It means they're throwing your money down the drain, and we deserve better as a people. And this is what we need to tell people in the rural areas. Yes, we want roads to come to you, but we don't want roads to come to you that are substandard, and in less than 5 years, they're nowhere to be seen.
Okay. Listening to both yourself and Pasamba, I think we're conflating two issues. What do I mean by that? We talk about deficit spending, and we're talking about also, because we don't want to come across that we are justifying what this current government is doing. Managing an economy, that's something totally different. Are they doing a good job of that? Are they, just like you said, maintenance? That's a totally different issue. But for us, that is not our argument. And Nyang, you mentioned something. You said the realities of our economic situation. Let's go back and look at that. The realities of our economic situation. Nyang, we're a developing country. We have a very small economy. We don't have a whole lot to go with. Then there is this issue, is the role of government and the role of the private sector. You're basically telling us at this juncture in our economic development as a developing nation. Again, I've heard this argument, whether it was during the First Republic, you know, and enabling a private-led economy. What has that gotten us? The argument is, and I'm talking about a transformational government. I'm not talking about a corrupt government. I'm not talking about this current government that you are questioning their motivation. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a transformational leader who can be committed that government has a huge role to play at this juncture in our economic development. And this whole argument that, well, government basically getting T-bills, and I see Tunde Jones is saying the same thing, is just to mop out liquidity. I don't think we have that kind of luxury. If we are to survive, in other words, to me, if we have a transformational leader who is willing to take resources and invest it in the people in the right way, I think that will develop our economy, Nyang. Unless and until you think that the only way that we can develop to a middle-level country is to surrender to this so-called private sector that is out there. And it's not there. You tell me.
Musaje, I'm very happy that the issues you raised were all hypothetical. If we have a transformation, allow me, if we have a transformational leader. Unfortunately, you don't have a transformational leader. So my argument is based on the prognosis that is on the ground today. What is on the ground today doesn't call for the type of development we are seeing. The pace of development outweighs our earning potential, outweighs our future income streams, and what it means, we are leveraging the lives of Gambians yet unborn, and that is very irresponsible on all of us, and we should try and tame the excesses of this government as it relates to their expenditure pattern.
Nyang.
It's your responsibility, and it's my responsibility.
I think Nyang is dead wrong on this, Musa. I think he's dead wrong.
Let's because we had Nyang, are you there?
Yes, I am.
We had Khalifa on our show, and he was basically making this same argument about the role of the private sector. And he even, I'm not sure whether I really remember the actual dollar amount, Pasamba, maybe you do. that the contribution of the private sector to our current Gambian economy, and whether relying on that and that alone could actually develop the Gambia. I don't know whether, have you ever heard Khalifa made that argument?
Yes, it was 9 billion for taxes, something like that. Well, go ahead.
He said something about, I don't remember the correct amount that he used, like the contribution of the private sector to our economy. Your thing is all over the place, though.
Yes, I'm moving because my battery was almost gone, so I had to get somewhere else. But anyway, my issue is very simple, and all I have to say, what you have to spend as an economy is something you can sustain. What you have to spend as an economy is something you can generate. So basically, you are telling the government they can live on borrowed time by making sure we have a better country faster than we can afford. And that is very irresponsible and reckless, because you are borrowing on future generation, and that is not right. It's not the responsibility of your great-grandchildren to pay for your education.
Last time I checked, a lot of developed countries are doing just that. I mean, the idea, I mean, they are doing that. They are actually doing that.
At what level? It's the levels.
It is one thing to say that we have a question of leadership. That I get that. It's another thing to say that the very system that government cannot play a major role in lifting our people out of poverty. I have an issue with that. And that the only way we can do that is to surrender to a perceived private sector that is out there. Man, Lolo munta reconcile. Lola amal problem with.
I am in agreement with you, Mr. Jang. My only point of departure and divergence is that the government is responsible for the basic needs of the country. But our basic needs also have to be in line with our expenditure patterns, what we have in revenue. So therefore, our income pattern. So therefore, the point I am trying to make and will continue to make to you is that we are growing our infrastructure faster than we can afford, and it will end up in a crash landing called debt stress. Do you want debt stress for the country? The answer is no.
Okay, Alamos, I will tell you, I don't know anything about the economy. I mean, economic theories, and I don't know anything, man, chunela, when it comes to these things. But I'm talking in terms of the basic realities of how these things work. The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, if you have to deficit spend your way into development, God damn it, deficit spend your way into development.
I think so
this is what Mexico have done. In every country, at the end of the day, the pace at which things are moving right now, Nyang, everything is moving so fast that in order to catch up and to really bring about the kind of transformational change that you want to put in place as a government, you literally have to spend beyond your means. That's just unfortunate. Listen to me. That's just unfortunate, the reality of it. You will be spending more than you are bringing in. That's just what it is. You are going to borrow money all over the place. As long as, now with one caveat, as long as this money doesn't go into people's pockets as in the form of corruption. Now, if we want to, no, just listen to me, If that's what it's going to be used for, that's when I have a serious problem with it. But if it is going to be used to really spur growth and bring about the kind of transformational change that we need in that country, like making sure that we have good roads, making sure we have good schools, making sure we have good hospitals, making sure we have a good rock-solid national security apparatus and system and professionals. That is an investment worth putting money into, and food sufficiency especially. This is where government should be spending money. And if you have to deficit spend your way into these things, you know what? Technological advancement and all these things, I can go through the whole 9 yards. You know what I'm talking about. If you have to borrow as much money as possible to really bring about the kind of transformational change that is needed in all these sectors, I will borrow like hell to get it done. Because in the end, what I am trying to say is this: once you bring about that kind of transformational change, that seismic shift, For you to be able to dig yourself out of it eventually is much easier. For us, the situation that we are in, this kind of cycle, poverty, and really not even having a good handle on anything. We have no good handle on our roads, no good handle on our medical delivery system, no good handle on technology, no good handle on food sufficiency. I can go through all of them. Since that's the problem, if we are going to be sitting here and being cautious about how much we spend, how much we don't spend, because we don't want to spend within our means, quote unquote, we are just kidding ourselves. The means that we have, the monies that we literally have access to right now, if it is about our means, those monies cannot even build, a 30-kilometer road for us. I can tell you that, because the revenue base is really not there. It's just not there. Unfortunately, our tax base is also very small. So in the end, if we are going to make capital investments, and those capital investments will help to create more jobs, for instance, then God damn it, let's make the capital investments and create more jobs. This is what a government has to do. Unfortunately,
Think of Gambia as a household. Think of Gambia as a household and ask yourself, if your earning power is $10,000 a month, do you want to live on $100,000 a month expenditure? If the answer is yes, pretty soon the credit card companies will be after you. Foreclosure is going to happen. Yes, nobody's going to sell a country, but the adverse effects of over borrowing is the suffering of our social sectors, education, agriculture, health, etc. Because debt servicing, look at the current budget and look at the amounts of funds going in for debt services. You will understand why borrowing has to be sustainable at a threshold that we can maintain on.
The problem that we are having in the Gambia is a corruption problem. Those monies that you are talking about, all those loans that you are talking about that we are having problem paying back, all of it was literally stolen. This is what happened. Yaya went and borrowed a hell of a lot of money. And no, I know you are laughing, but that's the truth. Yaya went in and borrowed a lot of this money and basically put it in his pocket. This is what happened. If those monies were properly invested in the right projects, I think you would have been singing a different song. The only reason why you are raising it right now is not because the borrowing itself was a bad thing. It was because the money that was borrowed was basically misused. People took it and stole it. This is what happened.
You're missing my point. I'm not saying borrowing is bad. All I'm saying here, and hear me for the purpose of clarity, like Yaya Jammeh said at the impasse, borrowing is not a bad thing. But borrowing has to be sustainable. If not, it leads you into a debt stress situation. And once you get into a debt stress situation, it's the social sectors and the poor and the vulnerable that suffers, because debt servicing takes a chunk of the monies that would have been and should have been used for hospital, roads, etc., and agriculture.
I guess Father Mos, your line is not. I can hear you. I don't know whether Nyang can hear you.
No, Father Mos, Coach Kanja time.
Oh, Musa is trying to say something. Father, go ahead.
No, welcome.
Father Mos, drop your line and come back. I cannot hear you. Musa, can you hear him?
Did it?
Yeah. We cannot hear you.
Banka. You see what you just said? That's exactly
so he can come back. Sorry, Coach. Go ahead.
What you just said here, that's the same argument that Yang was making. Nobody is saying that we cannot take loans. But if loans are taken and are misappropriated, at the end of the day, you are leaving a burden on the future generation of the country to deal with. Because the life that we live in the Gambia is like this story, like we used to say in Doi during the 80s and even 90s. Dem si bank, we loan $1 million or whatever that is now. $1.90 million in the 80s was a lot of money. Tabachita hiko, takanyari jabar, tek. Yes. Do amlo pay you nangu kër nga njaboot gi nekk ci mbedd bi, and that's the situation that Gambia has.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
If you look at the Gambia bank, there was a time where there was a debt forgiveness. Qualified. But we also keep on going, getting loans, more loans than ever. Now they're building roads. Roads are being all over, schools being erect all over the place. But tell me about the livelihood of the Gambian people. Because the money that's being borrowed is not being injected into the productive sectors of the economy. At least they will be able to yield the country something to be able to pay back.
This is the problem. Right, I agree.
It's not saying, what am I hearing, Nyang?
For whatever reason, your line is we can't hear you.
Man, unless I'm hearing him differently, maybe because I'm listening to him. Like the same position that all of us have. Because we are talking about if you have a transformational leadership. It's not a matter of if we are dealing with a budget that is now. So dealing with a budget that is now, you cannot ascribe it to what could be.
Thank you.
You have to look at our government that is in place and say, based on what they've been doing over the past few years, are they really giving us a budget that is sustainable? And the answer is no. The numbers are correct. You look at the education again, over 2.8 billion. You talk, guys, it takes a lot of money in like a primary education. You look at the numbers and they tell you most of it is correct. Pay salary, SRC, what is used for development is so minute that at the end of the day, what you end up doing when you're just throwing money, adding more and more and more debt, like he was saying, you have a $25,000 a year salary, $75,000 a year salary. So you refinance the loan, the house. And before you lose the house, you lose the cars, you lose everything, and you'll be leaving your kids in a situation that it not be. But if we had a government that is transformational, like I would say, then there would not be this argument. Because of whatever was taken as loans have been injected into the productive sectors of the economy to benefit our people.
Your line down.
Nobody can
Nobody can hear him. I don't know, maybe it's on my end. Man, at some point I'll kind of just drop and come back and see whether it's me.
Go ahead, Nyang.
Okay, I think Coach, I want Bala and Musa Jeng to both understand one thing. Economic management is all about choices. And these choices come with sacrifices. These sacrifices must be based on informed decision and national priorities. That is how a budget should be done. And yes, we have good guidelines for budgeting because we have the medium-term expenditure framework, the MTEF. We have programs with the World Bank and IMF. These are all well and good. But what we don't tell people, that sometimes we take monies, provision it for debt servicing. And guess what? We end up rolling over the debt and take the monies that were meant for debt servicing and bring it back as expenditure and spend more of it. So therefore, it grows your debt. It adds more of a liability to future generation of Gambians. Because if you go right now to the central bank and do a ratio analysis of rollover ratio, like debts that are matured and how much is paid back in cash and how much is rollover, meaning you write to the individual IOU. And the individual is in need of his cash because he was going to invest another year. But we are not paying and we are not provisioning to pay for that. So we are spending what we were supposed to pay that person for his year-end interest or interest plus principal. And these are problems that we need to accept. These are problems that we need to fix. And these are problems that's confronting us and confronting future generations. And it's none of their business that we are reckless with our expenditure today.
No, look, our problem mainly is, this is what goes. Yeah, no, let me make a quick point.
No, you can still hear me.
Now you can hear you, sir. No, look, I think our main problem is not even. I don't want to even use the focus too much on the economy on this, because the problem here is governance. That's the key problem. You can go from the economy and go to any other sector that we are talking about. and then you will find the same issue. So it's not the economic model that really we have technically in place. That is the problem. To borrow money and then use it for capital investments, it's just, I mean, this is what Western nations do to stimulate the economy. I mean, when the economic slowdown takes place, they borrow big time and pump money into the economy and then get the engine cranked up once again. So there's not a problem. Our problem is governance. If we are going to address this, that's where we have to go. If we're going to really get into economic theories and how it works and how it doesn't, I don't even know the people who are in charge of these processes are that clueless about these things that you are talking about. I do believe they are very educated, just union. Understand this.
If you listen to both of them, Mopa Samba and Nyang, all they're coming back as a rebuttal, what is wrong with this government? And we agree. Managing the economy is one thing, but the argument that we are making, and Nyang doesn't want me to say a lot of conditionalities. I mean, that's the only time that these models can be tested and see whether it works or not. My question to Nyang, and I think Tunde Jones also said that 98% is going to payroll. Nyang, if you're the Minister of Finance, we are where we are. Schools are there, kids need to go to school, teachers need to be paid. How in the world are you going to go about doing that? You said we leave, how do you do that? How do you handle the situation?
See, like I said, you have a whole pizza, and that is your national budget. Allow me. You are the Minister of Finance. You're holding a knife, and you now need to slice each sector and say, this is your slice of the pizza. Now, what I'm saying, if debt servicing is taking, let's say there was a time in the Gambia, debt to GDP was over 31 to 32%. So it means for every $1 collected, before we spend anything, we were taking 32 butus to pay debt. And what were we left up with? 68 butus. And this 68 butus is to pay for everything. Now, what you are asking me in terms of more public infrastructure, you are going back, same situation of a high debt to GDP ratio. Now your question, how are you going to pay for these teachers? The government of the day need to wake up and understand that we are a poor country and our expenditures need to be prioritized as a poor country.
What would you do? Answer to my question.
Allow me. There. Look at the office of the president and look at the amounts that are earmarked to be expensed in 2021. We need an exchequer that is bold enough to cut where the cuts need to come from, starting with Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Office of the President. And the exchequer need to be bold and have balls.
I agree. But would you say then you are actually going to add more money to the Ministry of Education, that sector? Because you still have to.
I agree with you, because that's why I say you have one whole pizza. How you slice it, it's up to you based on your priorities.
Your issue is reallocation. Where does it go? Because I heard Pasamba making the same argument. We'll rather invest it in health. Hanga, we can be all over the place.
Musa,
when you have a poor country like the Gambia,
if there is a problem that we have, is lack of priority. I don't think we prioritize where we need to.
I don't even think there is lack of priority. I think we don't have good leaders that have the commitment, the honesty, and the capacity to manage the economy. That I do believe. It's not a question because priorities they're all over the place. Because let me tell you this.
Full debt bomb, as we speak right now, the debt block of the United States is over 27 trillion.
Correct.
But the thing is, the difference though, is that when that debt is taken, most of it reaches domestic. Where is it injected so that it will yield something? Now, if you look at our budget, you look at the president's office, all right, and you allocate 663 million, 295,315 analysis for the president's listing office only, and most of it would go to salaries. Who are those salaries going to? You have almost 20. How many other advisors, and deputy advisors in that country? the salaries that they are paying. These people are giving cars. The cars that they drive like fueled by the taxpayers. The maintenance is done by the taxpayers. Each one has an outlay that is paid, has a driver that is paid. Ministers, you could am sa ñaar ñetti moto kër. So like Nyang is saying, I think we agree on this. Like last week when we had Kini, what's her name? I brought that issue. Unless we have a government that understands that, you know what, we do not have the resources to manage it. You look at the United States with all its budget. $billions more budget in the United States every time. Even when they do stimulus, they're talking about 3 billion, 6 billion. You will not see a director working for the US government who is given a vehicle to drive on the FBI.
Yeah.
To go to work and come back from work. You are given a salary, it is your responsibility to find your way to go to work. But when we are poor, but what do? We give you housing allowance.
I agree.
You have your rent allowance, you have the petroleum that is given, you even go to the National Assembly members. Right now, the minority leader and the majority leader, they are giving 12 vouchers so that they will go to work. The people that are giving cars, those 57 cars that they gave, the petrol. So to me, like Nyang was saying, you have a government that is responsible.
I want to pivot to another issue.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been really talking about it, and I hope that people listen to you, and that has a lot to do with what do they call them again? Our zoning problems. You go to Kairaba Avenue. Let's say, for instance, here I am. I'm in a Jaikati Yapala. I would just create small bar in the middle of Kairaba Avenue, and here I am selling meat. I don't have to worry about anything. I can go to anywhere, Senegambia Highway, and Dorfa di Jai Mata. I mean, these are problems. You go into anywhere in the country, what we call the Kairaba Avenue. This is supposed to be our armory, and it looks like a ghetto slums. How do we get away from this? How do we tackle this problem? Is it a municipality problem? Does government needs to get involved? Because this is really a problem. And I agree with you, but let's come up with solutions. How do we attack this problem?
The biggest enemy to this problem is the indifference of the Gambian first. I think we're ignorant to best practice, number one. That is at the personal level. Then in terms of the policy level, we have a structural failure in terms of policy. What are the structural failures? One is the Local Government Act. It didn't call for proper decentralization, because proper decentralization allows the municipalities to go and raise monies for themselves, independent. Not only raise capital, but go out and source for money in terms of municipal bonds and other things. What has happened? All these municipalities, they collect rates, and that is the base of their revenue, rates. So today they are indifferent whether I'm going to open a corrugated shack along Kairaba Avenue so long as I'm paying. That is a fundamental problem. Another structural policy problem is the Department of Lands and Surveys, physical planning to be precise. A country needs to have zoning and urban laws and codes. And today in the Gambia, there is no enforcement of zoning laws. There is no enforcement of an urban code. And the ghettoization of our country is going unabated. And people drive every day, be it the Minister of Lands. And look at tourism, for example. GT Board is spending a lot of money trying to gentrify the TDA. But at the same time, the Physical Planning Brikama Area Council are allowing squatters to squatter there. It's our resources that's going down the drain because government is not working in sync. Government is not working in harmony. Government is a dysfunctional amoeba in the Gambia, and everyone is working in silos. Hence, the rate of the degradation we are seeing in the country, be it billboards, be it shacks, be it everything in this country. It's a filth, it's a mess, and it's a leadership issue.
So, Nyang, as we look up to, I don't mean to get you in trouble, look up to 2021. I mean, we're all beginning to see how this movie is getting formed. I mean, what's your take on what to expect in 2021? Is it the same old, same old?
I think fundamentally my premise is every people get the government they deserve. And looking at it as of today, Gambians deserve Barrow. Why? Because we are inactive, we are lethargic, and we are indifferent, and we are highly opportunistic as a people. What do I mean by that? This current administration came in with a clear mandate to the Gambians. We are a transitional government, and we're going to do A, B, C, and D. They have failed woefully in doing what they promised us, but they have us again enabling them to really do what they want to do, and that is to perpetuate themselves. And that's why I say that every people get the government they deserve. We are yet to have a critical mass of like-minded Gambians who want to get out and say the status quo must change, and it must change for a better Gambia. Therefore, if this certain thing that we are living under today continues, I can see Barrow here for another 5 years, and it's not he's making, but it is the inaction of us collectively.
So, on a personal note, what are you doing about it to stop that? Are you forming a party, joining a party, or just doing the media thing to make sure that that doesn't happen? Your role as an individual.
He is running for the
society to change a society. You need a multifaceted approach, and this multifaceted approach comes in activism, awareness, political agitation. I know for a fact that I have a voter's card, and come what may, I know where I'm going to vote, and surely it's not going to be for President Barrow. I can tell you that. That's number one. But number two, I feel like I have the courage of conviction to continue to enlighten Gambians. And that is my role, and that is where I find my niche, and that's where I want to keep operating. In the political space, I will exercise my right.
Thank you. Banga.
So basically, translation, Nyang has finally declared on for people by people that he's ready to run for president. That's what I'm.
Oh no. Banga. There are more important offices in the land than being a president.
No, I'm just messing with you.
Nyang Njie. I'm not a power-hungry person, and I am very indifferent to positions. What I want to see is a better Gambia, and if I have to mop floors to create a better Gambia, I don't mind. And you know what? I'm not here for gratification or rewards. And if that were to be the case, I will not be sitting on the outside of the fence. I would have been on the inside of the fence, because I had the chance, I had the opportunity. But my courage of convictions states something different.
And that's very noble, obviously, very extremely noble. So I commend you for that. Now, when you look at the Gambia in general, since we are now out of the economic realm, we are now in a whole different discussion of other issues. Like you rightly said, everything is just chaos, total chaos. You look at the roadsides, like you always lamented, sharks. I mean, people you can just go and set up your shop anywhere you like, do whatever you want. And that's total chaos, that's total disorganization. And I think that is more of a, are you there? I think this line.
No, Nyang is never freeze now.
Sorry.
Could you hear me? Okay, you are here. Oh, okay. So, I mean, this is what you are seeing there on the street side is more of a manifestation of what the Gambia itself is, whether it's government or our institutions and how we are operating. That's exactly the kind of chaos you're seeing. That is, you have no rule of law, no rules, nobody is abiding by anything. With a very chaotic environment Nyang, tell me excuse me, you want to say something? Okay, tell me in 3 simple steps. If you want to make it 4, that's fine. What can we do to really, get to the root of this issue and then deal with it in a comprehensive fashion?
The root of the problem is ignorance. And the ignorance is not about education, but it's about awareness. The average Gambian don't understand the rights of citizenship and the responsibilities inherent in those rights. Fundamentally, that's our first problem, and we need to handle that. The best way to handle that is education and the curriculum of the school, from kindergarten to high school, to make sure that the average Gambian understands their role and responsibility to this nation we so call our country and we love. Then the second bit is the Gambian once again to understand that public officials are nothing but mere servants of the people, not the other way around. The third part is for also Gambians to understand that you don't support a party to get a personal reward, but you support a party to get a collective reward for the greater good's interest. And fourth, we need to get rid of the opportunistic tendencies that we have collectively as a people. Gambians tend to prostitute themselves for worldly gains, i.e., political office, i.e., perks, and at the end of the day, we sell ourselves short. So these four things are things we need to change to build a better Gambia. A new Gambia can evolve without a new Gambian.
So now, with the current political alignment that you are seeing, obviously the elections are coming, and where do you think, what do you see happening as far as coalitions, party alignments? What do you see happening eventually?
Well, I will tell you one thing. I think Gambia may end up having another coalition government. And I think if our political class are mature enough, they will stop the bickering and come together to uproot this president so that we can put back Gambia on track. And that track is to make sure that the botched and failed transition agenda and program we had is finished. But the political class need to put their petty squabbles aside and look at the collective interest. If not, this particular president will be installed again, and this country will further be decimated again. Therefore, we have a collective responsibility, and the politicians also have a collective responsibility to their conscience, to the people who rally behind them, to come together and make sure we bring a Gambia that is for the interest of all. And it can only happen through coalescing.
Good.
Well, Nyang, I think I agree with a lot of the things that you've said here today, including the need to change. But I also believe we cannot also just have another coalition just like that, because I believe in 2009 I wrote that because of vast suspicion that people have, the mistrust between the opposition parties, that it would be almost impossible to have a coalition.
Yeah.
2016 we saw a coalition, and we know how that ended. And I think it would be the tallest order ever to bring all these parties together again. But hey, that is to be seen. But one thing that I want to say, though, maybe this is my last thing. Gambia needs a government that will come in and say, you know what, we are putting a 2-year freeze on all non-essential purchases, including cars. No cars will be bought for 2 years. None of this all other nonsense that they buy would not be bought for the next 2 years. And then maybe that would give us a new beginning. But again, the way that things are going, I agree with you. Adama Barrow, we may be dealing with him for a while. He might be sleeping, but believe me, he will be winning, because of he has now mastered the politics of incumbents. I think he's going to use it to the highest levels. And what that would mean for us, I don't know. And I think for even if you don't have a coalition based on this new constitution, the best possible way of defeating Adama Barrow will be for all the other parties to do very well. Because if they do very well, I think that would deny Adama Barrow the chance, because Adama Barrow's base would be taken from other parties. Let's say if a Toy does very well, a UDP does very well, sadly an APRC does very well, or whatever, then Adama Barrow is toast. But if one party does well and the others struggle, Adama Barrow for at least for the next 15 years. But with that,
Well,
I really want to thank you. Definitely.
I am worried, and I share your concerns. I think people need to understand. I will always and I will continue to say that I vested my hopes of a better Gambia and a brighter Gambia on Adama Barrow, an unknown, someone I didn't know, but I believe he would have been someone who will help us deliver a better Gambia. I am not against him and I have nothing personal against him, but I don't appreciate how my country is managed because my expectations have been dashed.
If I can jump into this coalition talk, and I think maybe I mentioned this to both Pasamba and Banka. For me, 2021, if it comes down to a binary choice between an incumbent, Adama Barrow, and an energized party like the UDP, if it comes down to that, I think Barrow will win. I believe, though, like Pasamba said, if the other political parties, the new ones that are coming, in other words, DOI, Citizen Alliance, all the other different new parties, GDC, if they are able to form an alliance that is credible enough, powerful enough, I believe that could scramble the 2021 elections. I mean, Pasamba, that would be the same as these individual parties kind of taking a good chunk of the electorate. But that has to be done. I think they will need to come together, and Gambian would see it as, because I don't see a total coalition like UDP, DOI, and all the opposition parties coming and running against Barrow. I don't see that happening. It could be, but I really, really, really doubt that. So for me, the only other viable alternative is for all these other parties to come together and form an alliance. And then we would have a three-party race, if you want to call it that. To me, that would be the only thing that could threaten Adama Barrow not winning the election, irrespective of whether we're going by the 1997 or this new draft constitution that they were. Now, if it is the new draft, then it changes the equation. I mean, it becomes a winner take all. I mean, it wouldn't. Then there is this runoff or the second round of voting. Then I could see us forming a coalition against. That is, if the incumbent is leading in the first round. But if it is under the 1997 constitution, the only way I believe that Barrow can be denied a second term is forming another third rail out there that will kind of prove to Gambians that, look, we were betrayed. What we believed in, our aspiration was hijacked, and we are coming back together and right that wrong and give the Gambians some kind of hope. I think it can be done. But again,
well, I mean, I think that you all have said what I believe, and I think that's
the highest party average. Go ahead.
Exactly. I mean, I have the best. I'm going to start sounding like Donald Trump. I mean, you will. I mean, they're probably the best of the best. No, but on a serious note, though, I think you all are perfectly right, because and I've said this here last week. The only political party in the Gambia that is already a coalition as we speak, and we all have agreed, the coalition is what has to happen to defeat Barrow, to get a chance to defeat Barrow. Let me put it that way. Barrow's government, I mean, NPP is a coalition already. Look at it, NRP, PVP. I mean, I don't care what they say; they are all part of NPP now. Yeah, NRP. That's the truth, right? I mean, huh?
NPP, NRP, GPDP, PPP, and people would say whatever, but believe me, they have sold their party.
So, what Barrow actually has done, he went out and built a coalition already. That's what he has done. So other parties better borrow a leaf from that. Now, I understand, I get it. Some of these parties, for them to coalesce again, is going to be very, very difficult because of their past. They have had a history that is problematic, like DOI and UDP. I get that. But anything outside that kind of coalition, I'm telling you guys, Barrow is going to win hands down. Now, again, it's politics. Before 2021, December 2021, Anything can happen. Nobody knows. But the elections were held today, is what I'm saying, because that's the best way they put it. If the elections were held today, Barrow will win hands down, because UNPP is the only coalition in that country today, and a coalition is has to happen for anybody to win in that country. Now, the party militants or the parties themselves, I hope they don't see this as some sort of an endorsement and saying, "Bow, yeah, we do it." No, this is just the reality of the situation. The quicker they realize this and then go to the drawing board and come up with something that they can work with to really mitigate this advantage, they're just, kidding themselves. Look, politics is not about going up there and giving the impression that you are the biggest and the best in town. It's about winning. If you are not winning, I'm sorry, you can claim all you want. In the end, you did not win. That's just and the story ends there, right there. So Barrow's NPP is a coalition already. To beat him at the polls, the other parties better borrow a leaf from that strategy, because that's the only game in town. And that's the clear-cut way of explaining it.
Thank you.
Well, the guy with the highest batting average, the actual
batting average. This is the same guy who said a coalition will not happen and that Jammeh cannot be removed.
Don't even go there. Don't even go there. Don't even revisit the past. Don't even go there. But my batting average was 100% on that one.
You know what, why don't want
you're hunger. He still owes me money, you know. He still owes me money. $500 is what he owes me. You don't know that.
I think it's getting late over there. I mean, it was definitely.
We broke it down, and I hope our National Assembly members definitely, because the National Assembly, they have the powers to reallocate some of these monies. They can cut here and then put it somewhere else. They've done that before, and I think they should do that. I think the president's office, it doesn't make sense for the president's office to have that much money. It does. I know the NIA is under the president's office, but come on.
Whatever they reallocate, though, that go to Jimbala Road, reallocate Kekagman. We need it.
Okay, now you're looking at your personal interests. We should look at the collective. I am from Banjul. But I denounce the Banjul walks, not because I don't want to see development in Banjul. My issue is at what cost to the Gambian taxpayer, and all of us should be mindful of that.
If you have the right leader, we can still construct the Nyomi Hakalang Road. You can still do the
definitely
Kau Road and still be able to maintain a viable economy. That I
quite agree. I quite agree.
So but whatever they do, they better not touch that Kau Jimbala.
These two here, they are beginning to sound like kings and Keynes and the other economists.
If you listen to Nyang, that's his school of thought, the Milton Friedman kind of economic thought. That's where he belongs.
Hayek, sorry.
Keynes is the guy who said it's going to take government, because by the time you wait for the monetaries, the government sit by and just allow things to evolve, we will all be dead. So that's where.
But now we cannot hear you. Your line he's muted himself.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Musa, economist, but in as much as I'm a neo-Keynesian economist, I understand my national predicament and my national economic realities. So that's just textbook, but textbook has to be matched with what is on the ground. Right. What is on the ground for Gambia is COVID-19 shut down my tourism economy. COVID-19 reduced travels into the Gambia. COVID-19 is still ongoing, and I'm entering into a new budget cycle, and my expenditure is higher than during COVID. So, and I haven't even gone through a recovery. It defies logic Right now, the government must invest in brand Gambia in terms of visibility and access.
You know what, Yang, you just mentioned that I was going to ask you that question. You talk about tourism. I know you're very passionate about this. The brand Gambia and all that stuff, destination Gambia and all that. Given the fact that even though the government opened the country because of tourism, nobody is coming. And I've seen the minister talked about we're going to try to have Nigerians and all these people come and spend money. The diaspora,
it's not happening.
The diaspora may not come this year as much as they did over the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
If you were to advise the minister today on what needs to be done to at least have that very important institution remain viable, what would it be? That is the tourism industry.
Thank you, Coach. Your question is very pertinent. COVID may be a disaster for our economy, but equally it's a blessing in disguise. You see, right now, we have opened the airport, but people are not coming. The reason why people are not coming, Western travelers, generally, they buy travel insurance before they travel. When they buy travel insurance, anything that happens to them, the insurance is responsible for their evacuation and otherwise. Now, most travel insurance are not selling travel insurance to many destinations because they cannot manage or mitigate the risk inherent with COVID and people having to go there, and they don't want to go bankrupt. So I don't blame them. Therefore, our tourist arrivals are going to be very lackluster this year. But what can we do? Gambia has been a destination that relied heavily on tour operators to feed us with tourists. So what we can do now, we have a consortium of hotels. We can open, because the biggest opportunity we had as a country was Gambia bird. And we were dumb enough to kill it because of Ebola. So what we need to do now is a destination needs accessibility, and the accessibility needs a platform, and the platform is called an airline. What can we do? The government can open a shell company called Pichabi Airlines, whatever you want to call it. This shell company is just a shell. Now the government will go to Kairaba Hotel and say, Kairaba, we'll sell you 8% of this company for $12 million. Kairaba brings. They go to Senegambia, we'll sell you 10% of this company for $17 million. Sorry. They bring in their money. You go to the Sea Views and say, we'll sell you 2% of the company for $6 million. At the end of the day, we will collect nothing less than $400 million. We are not going to buy an airline. We will lease airlines or planes. And once we lease these planes, we will work with destination experts out there to position, brand, and market Gambia on our own. And we bring in tourists. Because guess what? The tour operators that we're bringing in Tubabs here are bringing in Tubabs to other destinations, the Marrakesh and other places, because they are loyal to their pockets, not to a destination. And we need to wean ourselves off of the tourism model, whereby when people don't feed us, we don't get visitors. And the only way we can change that is to get access, and the access is called an aircraft.
So, Nyang, with that question, Pasamba, sorry there. Can that also, because basically you say government need to initiate it, can that be done through using another entity like the private sector? Couldn't they do the same thing, create a cell company and approach all these players that you mentioned?
It's possible, but here is the reason why the government is important. If you have an airplane, the most two expensive costs are your landing and aviation fuel buying and other things. So government coming in will help dampen that cost, because civil aviation can give out waivers. In terms of jet fuel, we can find a way to make sure that our pricing is competitive so that the seats we are selling will be competitive.
Let me ask you this. Why don't you put that policy prescription, put it on paper, and not just talk about it, but act upon it, and maybe talk to the... Now, I'm not trying to blame you here, because to me, the idea it sounds fabulous, and it needs to be tried. How do we go about trying it without engaging that government, whether it's Ministry of Tourism, whether it's even, I mean, up to a point of even office of the president, and said, look, I have this policy prescription that I think, I mean, here is COVID, here is what I think that we can try. Is that something not worth trying?
Well, the problem is not trying, or the problem is not scared of failure. The problem is in the Gambia, if you are vocal and your decibels, the voice level is not in support of, people don't care what you bring to the table. Unfortunately, we have to call a spade a spade. They don't understand what being critical to a government is and sabotaging a government. I cannot sabotage something that I own, but I will be very critical to something that I have a vested interest in the outcome, and that is my government, my state, and my country. And they need to understand that we are in this together with them, but unfortunately, their intolerance and sometimes their ignorance see people like us as their enemies. We are not their enemies, because we're not interested in what they're sitting on.
I wanna push back though a little bit, because when you have a policy prescription that you believe in that this can work and it can impact that sector, messaging also is important. Is important.
But
This
do you
idea
think?
that you're a straight shooter.
No, but see, I am
Hold
not here
on.
to babysit people.
Hold on.
Mr. Jeng,
Question of
Nyang Njie is
babysitting.
not here. Allow me. I'm not here to babysit people,
No, hold
and I'm
on,
not here to
hold on.
bootlick
Let me
people.
finish.
If
Let me
people
finish.
see value in what you have, you work with them. If they don't see value,
Good,
you move on
good.
and take care of your personal issues.
Good. We don't live in this idealistic utopian where, I mean, I'm not going to babysit them. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is you have something that you believe in. Because at one time, I remember hearing you were working with Ahmad Ba. Now, I don't want you guys to think that we're raising this issue on support of the government. That's not what I'm saying at all. I am just saying, listening to you right now, that clearly our tourist industry is in trouble. Here you have a policy prescription, an idea that can work. All I'm saying is put it on paper if you really believe in it, and then you are into branding. The last job you had, you were communication and branding for the OIC, so you must be very good at that. Why don't you use those same skill sets? You know exactly who your target group is, office of the president. You know exactly what they are all about. Tailor your message just so that this beautiful idea will not die a natural death. And pursue it. I'm not resort to, I'm not going to, I'm afraid to them, I'm not going to babysit them, whether they like it or not.
Oh, no. You have missed my boat. No, what I'm saying, I said that in the Gambia, if one happens to take a position and the position is critical against the establishment, it is very difficult for the establishment to want to work with you.
I agree.
That's the point I was saying. I have a close relationship with Ahmad Ba, and call what may, he is a good listener. And I will tell you something as I speak to you right now. There is a lady here in Gambia called Jaha Dukure.
Yes.
I think she is one of Gambia's prized assets, and I do hope this country understands that. She picked up the phone and called me, hey, something's cooking, and I think Gambia can benefit. I said, what? Coming to America is about to be in the movies pretty soon, in the theaters pretty soon, and I know people within the circles who are looking to do something. Can you link? And I've created that. So yes, I extend a hand to work with people because it's not personal. It's the country's benefit. And if I see it, I present it. And if I present it, I will say one thing. Ahmad Ba may, on a political thing, maybe something else, but trust me, he likes to pick people's brains and he likes to listen. Whether he uses or not is something else, but he listens to people.
Got you.
And you know what, Young? It's not just having the idea, but having the people who are listening ready to accept your ideas. Because that's a major problem that we also have to look at. Because we have a culture in our country where you're just expected to just knuckle to the title somebody. The moment you say something about anybody who is supposedly holding a public office, you are an enemy. It's the whole nonsense that they do. But the government, it is in their interest. They listen to this show to say, you know what this guy makes sense. It doesn't have to take for Nyang to go to them. They can contact him and say, listen, this is an idea. We heard what you were saying. What do you think can be done about that? What are this is what you do. Even though I do not disagree with what you're saying, to go and say, you know what, this is the prescription, like a policy prescription, this I feel they be A, B, C, and D. That's the thing. But they cannot just sit there and just expect the reason why they also
Musa, I'm sorry, coach, to interrupt. I have been doing Gambia Uncharted for about a year and a half out of pocket. And what I'm doing is significantly contributing towards the visibility of brand Gambia. No one ever knocked my door to say, how can we make this better? How can you do better whatever you're doing? The issue here is who is behind it.
But again,
they're not what's good about Gambia Uncharted.
Young man, to be honest with you, I agree with Nyang on that one big time. If there is any point in this conversation that I'll be on the same side with him on the issue. I have been advocating myself for that, saying Nyang, these people can utilize Nyang and what the product that he has created. That Gambia Uncharted, if you ask me, I think it's one of the best marketing tools that the Ministry of Tourism has to actually market the Gambia. The other thing that I think they are also missing, and this is not my idea, actually I've heard it over and over again from other individuals, and that is the diaspora market. The Gambia has a diaspora market that is untapped. And when you see it, because tourism is all about foreign exchange. That's what it is. When you can earn foreign exchange from it, you have really, you milk as much foreign exchange from it as possible. This is how tourism can benefit a nation very, very much. Now, in our case, you have the Gambian diaspora that comes every December to that country. Huge number of people. They come there, what they have is raw cash. All of them. They don't use any credit card when they are in the Gambia. They come in raw dollars. And so for those people who come in there every December, the government should, what is wrong with Ministry of Tourism coming with a scheme or a strategy to really have packages for those people? What is so wrong with that? Not only them, during the summertime, the number of kids, when summer break takes place, the number of kids that actually travel to the Gambia with their parents is phenomenal. What do they do with that crowd? I can go through all of them. Now, just those two groups alone, I do believe can already compete with the traditional quote-unquote tourists, from Europe that come in, the tourists.
As you say, what? In the Gambia, let's say even just after when the change happened, 2007, December.
Yeah.
I remember sitting at the National Assembly at New Uji, and they were telling me, can you believe they ran out of dollars?
Exactly.
So you're talking about thousands of people there.
Yes.
Them would average at least $5,000.
Oh yeah. Easy.
This money, so they may, it's not money that you go and no. You go there and go visit.
Yes.
And then this money flows into the economy. So you're talking about anywhere between 250 million dollars to whatever.
This is my, I agree.
No, but also not only that. I think even for the traditional tourists, even the traditional tourists.
Guys. Musa. Musa.
Yeah.
Musa.
Mangladega.
I was telling somebody the other day that marketing a destination is all about identifying the brand with a personality.
That's correct.
Colin Kaepernick brands himself with Punta Kinte. I don't know whether you know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why is it? I have contacted the government, saying, look, you have a natural brand ambassador in Colin Kaepernick.
Correct.
Who brands himself as Kunta Kinte. Kunta Kinte happens to come out of Gambia. Colin Kaepernick is a global icon for resistance. You have a product called slavery that you can sell. And who better in the world to sell it than Colin Kaepernick?
100%. Yes.
Amga, you're preaching to the gallery or the choir, if you want to call it that. The question then becomes, and again, I don't want to sound like I am defending a government.
No.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Does Muhammad goes to the mountain or the mountain goes to Muhammad? You said you have an entity called Uncharted. What do you call it?
Gambia Uncharted.
Gambia Uncharted.
Gambia Uncharted. Anywhere you go, even in mature democracies, when you have an enterprise or an entity or a service or a product, you are going to maneuver through all this political maneuvering that needs to be done. You're not just going to sit there and, you know what? I'm going to hold on, my friend. Let me make my argument. What I'm saying is, we all cannot sit here with ideas, and then the fact that waiting for a government to come to us for us to be able to initiate or implement it. What I'm saying is, it takes that same responsibility, because nobody doubts you have ideas. We see you. We see what you say, basically. But again, you have to learn, how do I take this? How do I take it? How do I take it? Even though we all understand, maybe the government doesn't have the capacity. Maybe they're incompetent. Maybe all they care about is people like Silaba Samate. When he comes, they roll out the red carpet. People that don't bring anything to the Gambia or to the economy for that matter. But then what we cannot do, though, is to give up. To give up and give this space to the Silaba Samates of this world. If we do that as a country, then our country is going to go down the tubes. We need the young guys of this world to understand also the political situation that we're in. I'm not saying for him to go there and Siboru or do this or do that. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I do believe there could be a constructive engagement that these ideas that he's talking about could be realized.
Absolutely.
In Young's defense, though, Young said that he did try that. See, this idea, he literally went to these folks and said, guys, Colin Kaepernick is here.
Can I tell you one thing, Musa? Honest to God, I respect Ahmad Ba for one thing. Ahmad Ba has been asking for Nyang Njie in the early days, around 2017. And he was told that Nyang Njie is not in Gambia until he came to Kerfatu. And when he came to Kerfatu, he saw me. So you are Nyang Njie. Can you come to my office? I went to his office. He called his PS and also the GT board. I want you guys to work with this guy because I have traveled and I have been told that people saw Gambia through a program, He initiated that contact. I had a meeting with the Director General of the GT board, made follow-ups, and nothing ever came of it. And you know what? That's the Gambia we live in. You need to understand that.
Yeah, that's it.
And I still believe that you can walk away. We can't just say, Gambia, it is what it is.
I'm doing other things. Look, I don't have time to waste. I am busy making a living. That would have been more of me giving back to my country, but I will not waste my time. I have to make a living.
Musa, but I remember in June of 2019 when I went to Gambia, there was a conference that they had at the Kairaba Beach Hotel on tourism. I just heard about it. I went there. There were so many great ideas floated at that conference. They were working groups and all these things. Because Ahmad saw me and said, you know what, I want you to stay, so because he is great. And then we talked about this Kuntakiti thing, how it can be exploited, this diaspora tourism and all these things, the Gambian diaspora. You talk about all these things in the forums that the government organizes. And then what happens? It's just like Lemtahon CD and decide on what, I ain't doing this anymore, I'm gone. It's just always reaching on a nice document and then just have it sitting there gathering dust. It's all crazy. But anyway, well, I think time is almost up. Monday, I'm a problem. Musa, I am not that old like you. Why? This past week, I've been getting 2 letters like ago. Assistance program. I'm like, who told you I am dying? I don't know whether they heard or whatever.
For what? What did you say?
Funeral, this thing, assistance program. I'm like, what the hell? I think you need to
Look, in these days of COVID, the funeral service has, I mean, they've been advertising big time. I mean, so,
how did they know my name? And how did they find my
well, people maybe know, maybe he has COVID, and who knows, maybe time is up.
Guys, I got to go. If you guys excuse me, thank you so much for having me, and it was a pleasure spending my evening with you guys.
Thank you very much. But again, like I remind you, we have assets like Lou in the Gambia, so you can't give up, no matter how tough.
No, I'm not giving up. I just reorient my resources and my time. That's all.
I hear you, man.
But you know, it's sad though that Gambia, we frustrate each other's efforts so much that people basically shift away and then go do something else. And I see it everywhere. Gambia, see here like Deka. Everybody is fighting everybody. The whole country, everybody is fighting everybody. People are just
Banka, nobody can frustrate you. You only frustrate yourself because you are in control of your destiny. Helping your nation is a privilege, not a right. And it's an honor and a duty for a good citizen. But allow me. The first rule of a human being is self-preservation and taking care of self. So continue taking care of self.
No, but that's what I'm saying. You just confessed here. You said you just redirected your attention elsewhere, and that really to me is you are chickening out. That's what you have done.
Oh, I mean, no. I'm not chickening out. Banka, I'm a consultant. I can make my living doing what I do. So why shouldn't I focus on that?
No, hey, more power to you. I was just.
Bye-bye.
All right, man. Thanks, man.
I wanted to take this opportunity to with two people who have been here on our show a number of times. That is Malik Jai and Lamdo C. Today is their birthdays. So
wow.
You know, birthdays. You know, I'm not sure you don't have anything nice to say about that.
You almost at some point. Why now?
It's like no. I think Lamdo Salat and to Lamdo is very low now, Musa. So
hey, Banka, even before I forget, I want to give a shout out to Rohi Jang in England. A smart lady.
Hey. This is the Genius Center. Is that what it is? Yo. Maybe now I understand what is going on.
He's a bit supporter of our program. She always tune in every Sunday. So she left me a voice note. Program every now and then program. Every Sunday actually. Mota Maneko, that is why whatever it takes, we would make sure that every Sunday we'll come here because of people like you guys.
That's what he said. You also need to add it.
I want to come in. Every day, but why not? He did say it. Three of us, the way we kind of that really means that brings a lot to the panel.
I think the loan of the SPGDP has a lot to do with it because it makes it so easy where you can now debate people and then have a laugh at it and all that stuff.
Right.
For how many I would ever be grateful for.
It was a good one, though. I think.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, again, to just remind people that Muta Dabo Junior needs to be helped. I hope that the Council of Arts and Culture or the tourism,
and culture,
yes, even QTV.
And then tomorrow is Gambia is playing Gabon, and RTS will be showing the game. And here it has agreed with every medium
dégg naa ne gars yi ne seen président bi sax booy bi call nañ gars yi waaye ak moom ñu doon down nag.
Because they said anything that would encourage the boys. And I also want to thank the government because they started a flight for them to Bamako, and they were leaving today. They have them a special flight. And even we came because they have been a young tribe, like I said, there is it all. They invited them to Mauritania to play again. How can cricket, never happy, never proud, whole country is behind. Congratulations to Senegal for qualifying because they won today. So
yeah, Banga, John is saying urban planning is very important. So we need to bring somebody on our show to really talk about that.
Yes, very, very important. Urban planning.
Well, if they have ideas, any one of us, any ideas, and then we'll try to bring them. And
now we mentioned Padudu Mbai. Yeah. Padudu is Raki Habibla actually.
Good. You know,
so maybe
we could not get to it today. We saw what happened in Mamadou, where I think it's Mamadou is the name of the place, where somebody went from Bojan claiming he owned the land. They went there and bulldozed people's houses. The people were out. It's just that what is happening. And I hope Gambia government understands the dangers that this land is imposed.
They are playing with fire.
That's why they build Kiramtam. They can for and you just go there and just clear the land and they just come and bulldoze the whole damn thing. They should find a way of finding a way of compensating people, right? And so you have so many people homeless in that country. Yeah. Because somebody believe them he owns the land and they say soldari topala and they bulldoze housing down. It's sad, but we need to take care of that situation. Otherwise we regret it. We'll live to regret it. Why with that, guys? Thank you guys so very much. Back to Star.
After the next one. All right, thank you.
All right.